please.
Okay. Just as a reminder to provide your physical location when I read your name. Councilmember Wilcoxen. Mayor Pro Tem Brown.
Present, Ypsilanti, Washtenaw County.
Councilmember Somerville.
Present, Ypsilanti, Washtenaw County, Michigan.
Mayor Richardson.
Present, Ypsilanti, Washtenaw County, Michigan.
Councilmember Morgan.
Present, City of Ypsilanti, County of Washtenaw.
Councilmember Simmons.
Present, attending virtually from the city of Ypsilanti, Washtenaw County.
Mr. Jones Chance.
Present, City of Ypsilanti, County of Washtenaw.
With all present, there is a quorum.
Thank you.
I'll move to excuse Mr. Wilcoxen.
Support.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, thank you.
Council, next item on the agenda is agenda approval.
Are
So
there,
moved.
okay, thank you. Is there a second to that?
Support.
It's been moved and supported to accept the agenda as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. The motion passed. Okay, we can go forth, Mr. Halinga.
Council, next item on the agenda is public comments. For those on the attendee list that would like to make comment, please raise your hand. You'll have 3 minutes to address council. If anyone would like to address council, Allison does have their hand raised. I'll allow them to speak now. And you'll have 3 minutes to address council.
Hi, my name is Allison Ivy, and I am joining today because I am very disappointed in the lack of representation that was shown by City Council to the community members in regards to the funding of the police in the last City Council meeting for the 3 police officer positions. It was kind of blindsided. I believe it was even stated that it was controversial, that it was brought up last minute. It was a split vote. And I just think there needs to be more community involvement in a decision that's going to be so far reaching in our community. We all voted you in with the idea that you would be listening to us, hearing our input, and making decisions based on what we want. And I don't think that a last minute decision and a vote behind closed doors and not listening to your constituents when we've repeatedly said that we want less police and voting on getting more police is necessarily listening to your constituents. And I urge you as council members to stick to your conscience, do what you know is right, and not vote to put more police on the streets when we're already one of the most policed cities in the state. This is ridiculous. You could do better. You all know you could do better. We have better things to spend our money on. You should all be ashamed of yourself. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Allison.
Council, the next individual with their hand raised is Amber Fellows. I'll allow them to speak now. Amber, you have 3 minutes to address council.
Hello, council.
Hello.
Hi, yes. Hi. I'm here today for the same reason Allison is. I have not been here since January, I believe. And I am very dismayed to be here for this reason, but sadly not surprised. I understand that you all haven't made a single move on any policy changes to better the lives of the Ypsilantians in that time. And yes, my primary issue is housing. And I know that jack shit has been done about that. And now some of you have created a backdoor deal with the chief of police, Chief DeGiusti, to funnel more money into the YPD on the auspices of community policing and social work. It's a disgrace what you've done. Ypsilanti doesn't deserve this level of incompetence. So I am urging you to bring this vote back, the amendment to the budget to talk about it with the community and get community input. The fact that this was not publicly noticed, that there was no community engagement or public engagement around this issue means to me that you just didn't care. You didn't care to check in with people. And instead, Nicole Brown looked straight at Chief DeGiusti and asked him to back her up, which felt like a clear indication to me that this was all arranged behind closed doors, along with Brian Jones-Chance, clearly in on it. By the way, Brian Jones-Chance, I'm calling for you to resign from your position. I've called for it before. I'm calling for it again because you're completely incompetent. You vote regressively on everything. You don't care about public input. And I think you're just like, think that you have any say in this when you've been appointed position. You're a non-elected appointee of council. It's just ridiculous. And then Anthony Morgan, please consider the fact that your constituents, I am one of those people, did not get to talk about this issue before you made your decision. You said it yourself that this is not about safety, that hiring more police to the YPD is not about safety. So if it's not about safety, what the hell is this about? You have to explain yourself, and then you need to hear response and take it in. So I'm calling for you to bring this up, to bring it up as an amendment to the agenda, because you can still do that before it goes into effect in July. So please do that tonight. Amend this agenda to discuss the issue of being untransparent and basically shitty to the residents of Ypsilanti. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Amber.
Thank you, Amber.
Nice to hear from you after so long. Thank you.
Council, the next individual with their hand raised is Desiree Simmons. I will allow them to speak now.
Hello, good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Desiree.
So my thoughts are not, it's kind of a scramble because of timing, but there's so much to say. I'm also here speaking about the increased staff. I know we're talking about the 3 police officers on top of the other staff too with the YPD. I just want to situate this in saying that this isn't new. So for each budget conversation I've been a part of, the chief of police has always asked for more staff. It makes, the same kinds of arguments. And so I just, I feel like this is nothing new. And so trying to connect it with all these different issues like the social worker. I mean, we're hiring 1 social worker to 3 police. That math doesn't really add up to me. When we think about how many, I question about what are the agreements with the other police that we have, the EMU police department. So when we say that there's not a presence, I see that presence all the time, personally. When we talk about, what's in vogue is municipalities increasing police budgets. That's what is constantly happening, and that's what's happening across the country and in Ypsilanti. And what I don't see is as much focus on community-based alternatives. When we're talking about safety, people are signing on to this because they think this is going to prevent more gun violence. But what we're hearing in terms of the reason is for towing, to make sure that we get people towed. So we have police acting as insurance, for towing companies. So do we need more bodies to complete paperwork and to act as insurance brokers, or do we want to fund what is needed to end gun violence? Do we need more people from somewhere else patrolling certain street corners and writing tickets, because we know that we'll see an increase in tickets because of this, for things like paraphernalia, or to support revenue? Or do we want a community presence that will disrupt, de-escalate, and reintegrate? We're talking about what can we do, what kind of presence. To me, I think about, find some grandmas on the corner to put them up at the stations and have them call out people's government names as they see them and say, oh, so and so, I know your mama. That would probably get more safety than what we're talking about. I'm talking about prevention, not something for after the fact. I want to say also the millage, like, when we're talking about the fiscal irresponsibility, not only is it that, almost $300,000 per year, there's also the equipment needs, there's also the pension, and who knows what's going to happen in the next CBA as that comes up. And the millage was for safety, not for police. And so let's not also count on those millage monies coming through, given all of the dissatisfaction across the county based on what we're seeing. So there's so much more to say, but I would ask y'all to reconsider and for us to actually have a conversation and lean into what we can do, not just say that we have to throw up our hands and say, well, let's just do what everyone else is doing, even though we know it doesn't work.
Thank you, Desiree.
Council, the next individual with their hand raised is JC. I'll allow them to speak now.
Hey everyone, this is Jeff, Ipsy resident. Used to collaborate with Anthony and Radical Washtenaw back in the day. I'm gonna jettison my notes because Amber and Desiree have said everything I feel so eloquently. I guess I'll just keep it really brief and say, like, everyone I know and love in Ipsy doesn't want 3 more cops. We want 3 less cops, and eventually we want no cops, because people in this town can take care of each other. We have to vision how that will look. And I know that there are a lot of us here that are willing to do that work. So please, let's not use our precious resources to hire more cops. Thank you.
Thank you.
Council, the next individual with their hand raised in the attendees list is Brian Geringer. I'll allow him to speak now.
Council, I am pretty pissed off to have to come here tonight. What happened 2 weeks ago was inexcusable, completely inexcusable. I do want to thank council members Wilcoxon, Somerville, and Mayor Alan Richardson for doing the right thing. Like Jeff said, I think that, Jeff and Allison and Amber and Desiree said, put these things so eloquently, and I can't add too much to it. I agree with everything they said. I think the idea that this was snuck in the second reading that passed with only 4 votes, that Councilmember Simmons had to call the vote in a quick time, and that's the way it went through, is complete BS. I don't know who you think you're serving by doing that. I think it's ridiculous. Also, I do want to mention city staff. I mean, Mr. Basabika, like, clearly, I mean, watch the video. Like, he's clearly like, what is going on right now? Where is all the money going? Oh, all the money is going to police. Once again, it's the same thing. Just like all the, national money goes to the military. There was also a talking point brought up that, Ipsy police is different than other police, and abuse of power isn't an issue. Well, rest in peace, David Ware. Like, an unarmed Black man was gunned down by the Ipsy police in 2007. It's not And it's not as if there's a, you know, like this isn't the south side of Chicago. So, you know, that measure that, oh, how many people have the police murdered? It shouldn't even be a measure that's brought up, but here we are. You know, I don't know why Councilmember Jones-Chance thinks that the idea of reducing police budget is just something in vogue. I mean, I don't know if he's listened to any of the actual arguments that have been brought up. And yeah, I mean, lastly, I guess I just want to say that, like, you know, we're here, we're gonna do what we have to do. I don't hope that anyone who voted yes on that amendment is going to have another term, and I'm gonna work so that they don't, because you're not doing your job. Your job is to serve us. And even if you think there should be more police, if you're proud of that decision, then it should be a public decision that people in the public have input on, not snuck in the 11th hour. So if there's any amount of any measure that you can do to stop this from happening, please do it. Thank you.
Your time is up, Brian.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye. Thank you.
Council, the next individual with their hand raised is Brian Foley. I'll allow him to speak now.
Good evening, Council. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Yeah, Brian Foley, resident of First Ward, South Side of Ypsilanti, lifelong resident, live here 61 years, live on Ainsworth Circle. My parents live on Ainsworth Circle. The house is backed up to Oak Clinic, just to give you a physical reference of where I'm at. First of all, I want to commend Ryan Jones-Chance, Nicole Brown, Jennifer Simon, and Anthony Morgan for having the courage to stand up and vote for an increased police presence. Why? Because this is what our community has been asking for years. See, I live here, been living here all my life. I live here during the daytime, and I live here during the nighttime. And I hear the gunshots, I smell the gunpowder. I've actually seen the blood stains up and down the streets. So we've been asking for a higher police presence. Our community has, but they're held hostage in their own homes. Many are afraid to go out at night. Some even afraid to go out during the daytime in fear of being shot and being harassed. I've heard the comment being made about somebody can go and make a report about, I know you. That has happened. And what has happened is retaliation to those people where their house has been shot up. I've been up there on numerous occasions. When I say up there, I'm talking about at Park Ridge Community Center. Numerous occasions where gun battles have taken place during the daylight hours when the Park Ridge Community Center is holding session with children present. So I don't live in a fallacy world. I don't live in what's happening in the national television. I live right here on the south side of Ypsilanti. There's more violence that takes place on the south side of Ypsilanti than you can imagine. I'm not trying to paint my community as some type of terrible place, because it's really not. But a lot of people who try to speak for us don't look like us, and they don't live over here with us, and they have no idea what takes place in my neighborhood. So like I said, I commend you for doing that. We've had numerous of town halls, and I would really like to know why our mayor didn't vote in the affirmative with everybody else, because she's attended many of them. She's hosted one that I co-hosted with her, and she's been in numerous neighborhood association meetings where they asked for police presence. So I just want to commend those four for having guts to stand up and speak what the community here, people who actually live here, have been asking for. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Foley.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate you coming out.
Council, the next individual with their hand raised is Celeste. I'll allow them to speak now.
Sorry, did you say Celeste?
Yeah, there was a Celeste with their hand raised in the attendees list.
Oh, okay. Not me.
Celeste, you'll need to unmute yourself in order to make comment.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it's Celeste McClellan with an M. Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to speak to this issue about the police. I agree with Desiree and the other folks that have spoken before that we need to look at another way than fighting gun power with more gun power. And I think that would be wise of the council to have more discussion at least and to reconsider this going forward. Despite people's wanting more police, I think there are other ways to deal with this. And in our country, I think there's been enough examples of the violence that begets violence. And we need to look at some other way to address these issues. I appreciate you letting me speak. Thank you.
Thank you.
Council, that was the last individual with their hand raised in the audience. If anyone else would like to make comment, please raise your hand and I'll allow you to speak. Okay. Emily Hopner has their hand raised. I'll allow them to speak now. And also to those in the attendees list, you're only permitted to speak once during public comment. Emily, you are set to address council.
Hi, thank you. I also wanted to speak on the addition of 3 police officers to the budget. And I guess I just want to say that I urge looking into solutions that are based in community alternatives to police for addressing the very real issues that are occurring in Ypsi. I acknowledge that there is violence occurring, but I wonder how much police intervention so far has actually solved those issues short-term or long-term. And I would be very interested in understanding and doing a lot more research into community-based alternatives and models that already exist that we could be researching and putting our energy into instead of continuing to try to increase police budget and adding more police when it doesn't seem to be working. And that is all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Ms. Hopner.
Council, that was the last individual with their hand raised. If anyone else would like to make comment that hasn't yet, please raise their hand and we'll allow you to speak. Seeing none, we can move on to the next.
Before you do, I would like to make a comment in response to Mr. Foley, and also if any other council person would like to. Mr. Foley, I voted against the 3. I had made mention in our discussion that I could support 1. It's based on our budget. We had already been told that we have a shortfall for this year, and it's not just looking at this year, but looking at the years to come in maintaining the that level of support for an additional 3 police officers on the force. So it's not necessarily that we don't want, but it's as what we hear oftentimes is complicated. The budget has to be considered also. And Mr. Basabika had already told us that we already had a shortfall and had raised a question about our budget facing some difficulties next year. So That's why. I do understand that there is a lot of gun shooting. I hear it often. In fact, I heard last night what actually turned out to be fireworks, but it certainly sounded like gunshots. So I understand the problem in this community. I have lived in this community pretty much all of my life, at least for the last 30 years and 20 before that. I understand, but I just wanted to respond to your questioning. So did any council person like to have a?
Yeah, I would like to
Not-
respond just a little bit, Mayor, if I could, just to say a word or
Yes, you
two.
may. Yes, you may.
And then we can continue the agenda. I just want to say I appreciate every person that had a stance on what side of the issue of us adopting 3 more police. I'm empathetic to what people feel and think. However, until we start calling trash compactors, or we start calling the ACLU, or we start calling athletes, we're calling police when things happen in our city. And until another system is erected, like you said, I do believe in community policing. I believe in other tactics that lead to safety. But when we have a system of bodies that can't function, I think one of the best ways is to get the system able to function now, regardless of how those people do the job. I think we have a say on that. But again, I'm very empathetic to how some people see crime. But in my opinion, shortly, I just want to say it seems as if in this consistent trend where people who have the least amount of interaction with the police have the most say about what police should be doing. And it's been in communities where there's a more police and more presence of police seem to be sometimes and they need that safety and security also. And I think sometimes they get overlooked because of the people who don't live in those neighborhoods have a lot of opinions about what police should be doing in the areas that they're not in. But either way, it's complex and it's complicated, but we're doing, I supported it because again, I would like our system to have an opportunity to work, and then we can work the methods that they use. So I appreciate everybody's response on what we're doing with the police in our city. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Morgan. Anyone else before we?
Yeah, I would like to just make a brief comment, and I apologize. I'm also trying to finish my dinner while getting into the meeting, coming from work. But I do appreciate all the feedback that we have received and those who are engaging in conversation around what we should do to better our community as a whole. I'll leave it there. But I think that the decision that was made, if anybody actually knows me, they would know how I feel about police and the need for reform and the need for change. And the decision that was made was not based solely in that, because I do believe there are many improvements that we can make around policing. But I'll give an example and then I'll be quiet, I'll shut up. But just the day after that vote happened, I was leaving to go pick my nieces up, and I watched a hit and run happen right in front of me coming down Hawkins Street. And the hit and run left, the light post flew up in the air into somebody's yard, and every wire exposed as families were walking their dogs and walking with their children down the street. And I called the city manager. I had to call the police and do all these things to try to, first of all, get this situation taken care of, because it was very dangerous to just be left exposed as folks were walking the neighborhood. And when I called, the police could not respond and come to the place that I was, because they were in the park dealing with some issues that had guns involved, is what I was told. There were guns cited or a call about guns, and they went there. And I even passed an officer as I was coming back to the space to park my own car there, to sit there until someone could get there, so that no one could potentially be hurt by these live wires that were exposed on the ground. And after doing all of that and making all these calls, and even talking to an officer in passing who said, we got the call and we'll be there next, they could not even come to that point. We didn't have enough officers on the road at that moment to even come and take care of something that was light work, to be honest. And so when I think about that, and I think about what we talk about as safety, I know that police don't create safety in communities, but there are certain functions that they do serve that we need them for. And we literally are not functioning at a level that we can even have simple things, that something that was nonviolent attended to in midday afternoon in Ward 1, I will say. And what happened was, after making all these calls, we ended up having to send the fire department and other folks to come and take care of something that when I called dispatch, when I called, who you call when you need the non-emergency line, we could not get attention to something that had just happened right away. And so I say that to say that I know that hiring additional police is not going to change all the other things that we know are problematic, but also hiring a social worker is not going to single-handedly change that as well. And there are different pieces and mechanisms that have to happen hand in hand and simultaneously to really create the change that we're looking for. And I would love to hear the voices of those who I hear from in those town halls and in this community to show up to council to talk about what they're telling me when they call me, when they email me. The voices that we hear, I appreciate you and I hear you and I actually align with a lot of what you have to say. But I also hear the voices who aren't as vocal, who aren't as present, but equally have a voice and live here and are asking for the opposite of what you're saying. And what I feel like I have tried to do was find a happy median. I also want to clarify, there was no backdoor deal about any of this. These are my own thoughts. I've always made decisions based on my own thoughts. And so that's not the case at all. I'm watching things happen in front of me and then having constituents share those things with me and making decisions based on a holistic view, not just one side, and trying to do the best that I can to make those very hard decisions. And so I hope that folks will, receive that and give some grace around the other voices that you may not be hearing when these decisions are being made at the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Mayor. can I-
Yes, I'm sorry, didn't see your hand.
That's okay. I think my thoughts are a combination of what Councilmember Morgan and Brown had to say. I think that there are a lot of voices that we hear in the city, and there are a lot of voices that do want more police. I don't think there's any one of us on council that wants to have the city be a police state. I would like to see other things in place, resources in place where actually the police are called for relatively nothing but the most serious of incidents, because we don't have a need for them. But that's not where we're at. We really are at a place where we have a barely, kind of a barely functioning police force that just goes call to call. And I want better than that for our city. I want them to be able to engage with the community and build partnerships. And they can't do that when they just are going from call to call and they don't have time to do those things. I found Mayor Pro Tem Brown's argument compelling about having the support, there with the social worker. And it was something that we that was decided in that meeting, but there was nothing, I would say, backdoor about it. But anyway, I think we all want to have a city that's safe, and that doesn't necessarily equal more police. But I think we're at a place where we're still at such low numbers that we need to have that. Also, while we're building in other things, I think that if you look at some of the work that's been done in the past few months, there's been support given. We also putting money towards the public schools, barrier busters. I mean, there's a lot of other efforts that have been going on to support community building and improving lives for the people who live in this community. So I think if you look at it narrowly at one thing, you're missing the whole big picture of what we're trying to do. And so I'm not ashamed of that vote at all. I stand by that fact that I want this to be a safe city for everybody. And that doesn't necessarily mean more police, but we got to have at least a bare minimum to do, some of the things we need to do. And also while we're trying to put other things in place and try to build this to be a better, safer community, because that's what I'm hoping for. So it'd be great if we get to a place where there's no need for them anymore and we put them out of work. But we still have a lot of work to do to get there.
Thank you.
I think I'd like to say something.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I started writing out a more measured response because I'm not good off the cuff. But this is just so disappointing. And it just seems like a repeat of the same things that a lot of this recent movement started for in the first place. The people who are the most affected aren't being heard. And when they are heard, and when we do respond to them, the people who are less affected come out with the biggest voices. And what bothers me in this case is sitting on the calls
Are you there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
No problem. Go ahead. When you're ready.
Listening to a grandmother putting her grandbabies to sleep in a bathtub because there are bullets flying through her apartment. And when the 3 young Black members of council, the 3 people who are the most likely to be affected by this, stand up and do something for her, the voices that I hear telling us that we did the wrong thing are not the people who need this help. I abhor violence. I'm a pacifist, and for religious reasons and a lot of other reasons, and you all know that. I'm not advocating for violent solutions to these problems. The reason that towing was important is because in this community, towing, in these kinds of properties, towing is the single easiest way and most effective way to help alleviate violence. There are guys there with $100,000 cars. They clearly don't live in New Park Ridge. The tow company won't tow without the police present. The police can't be present because they don't have enough people on the ground. These people need help right now. Right now. And now we can do something about it, and all we hear about is we can't find it in the budget. We can't find it in the budget to keep a grandmother from having to put her grandbabies to bed in the bathtub. We can't find it in the budget. It's ridiculous. And then I know people want to support the Black Lives Matter movement. It's important. It really is. But when, as a white person, if you ask, what can I do to help? The answer is always the same. Shut up and listen to Black people. You have Black people saying, we need this. You have Black people on council saying, I heard my constituents, this is what we need. We are people who are affected. Nicole and I grew up in that neighborhood. And I don't know about her, but I've seen some things. I had a knife pulled on me in middle school at the bus stop. Just a few weeks ago, there was someone in my house threatening to kill me and my family. I was tipped off by my sister and had to sneak out of my own house. 3 hours and 2 calls to dispatch before police could show up because they were handling a gunfight on Woodward. You don't see the problem here because you don't live this life. You are not in the communities that need this help. You're not. And we don't need you speaking for us. And I'm just the privilege of, this is not the South Side of Chicago. You don't know what it is. You don't. People are going to die. probably whether we do something or not. But we don't need you gambling with their lives, because I don't even know why you're doing it. I don't know. And it suggests some conspiracy. Come on, guys. If you want to know, I'll take you down. Let's go visit New Park Ridge. Let's go talk to the neighbors. We'll go door to door. And you ask them what they think, what they're going through, what their lives are like. Ask us what our lives are like. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Jones Chance. Appreciate that sharing. Okay. There's no others. We can move on with the agenda. Mr. Halinga.
Council, the next item on the agenda is a presentation.
Actually, there was a hand up from someone who hasn't spoken yet.
I don't see a hand. Is it a council member?
It's not, it's.
We have closed public
Okay,
comment.
okay, my bad.
Okay, no.
Okay, so it's a presentation regarding Washtenaw Regional Recycling Management Authority, and Theo Egermont is here to present. Theo, did you want me to share my screen or did you want to share your screen?
I can share my screen. Give me 1 second. I can pull this up here.
I just have to make you a co-host.
All right, can you see that okay?
Yes, thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you for having me out tonight. I'm Theo Egermont. I'm the Public Works Director at Washtenaw County, and I'm serving as a representative of WARMA, the Solid Waste Authority that you're a member of. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about a program that we're going to be launching that's going to last a portion of the summer. It's going to start in just 10 days here, so it's coming up very quickly. And I also want to thank you for having me out and for sending us your chair. Ron Akers is the chair of our Solid Waste Authority, and we're very happy that he's been representing you. He does a great job. So I'll start off by telling you that why we're doing this program and what we're trying to achieve. So we applied for this grant in February of last year, and then of course COVID hit, so we haven't been able to do it until now. And the issue that we're seeing that we're working to address is we checked with our MRFs, our material processing facilities, and we asked them, what kind of contamination do you see? And by contamination, I mean things that go into the recycling bin that are trash, that should not be in the recycling bin. And they told us we see about 30%. So 3 in every 10 things that goes in the recycling bins that end up at the processing facility is trash that has to be sorted out. And that means that that there's safety hazards. People put batteries in, and if they're the wrong kind of batteries, sometimes those batteries can explode, so they cause fires. If there's things that tangle, you can see in the picture, there's a lot of like textiles and cords and things, those get wrapped around the machinery and those have to get taken off. And so someone actually has to climb on there and take those things off. So it causes some safety hazards there. And if you remember back to the early days of COVID, there's a toilet paper shortage. And one of the reasons that can cause a toilet paper shortage is if you imagine that people are putting half gallon of milk, and that's spoiled milk, and they put it in the recycling. And then that spills over all the paper when it gets put in the recycling truck. You now have a bunch of contaminated paper. And so then you're not getting paper to the recycling facility to be turned into new products. And so if you multiply that out by thousands and thousands of times, you end up where you don't have the materials you need to create new products. And so that's one of the first things that Warma said we wanted to achieve was we wanted to work on education and outreach. So I'm a firm believer if we give people the tools to do the right thing and we give them proper incentives and information, the people will do the right thing. So we're working to provide those tools to people. So that's the problem. I'm going to tell you what we're going to be doing this summer to work on that. So we're trying to reduce contamination, and we run this grant, which the goal is to reduce contamination by 40%. So the way that we're going to do that is there's an audit. It takes a week, and we're going to send the recycling trucks and get a sample from every community, and then actually sort it out into different materials or different categories to find out what percentage plastic, what percentage aluminum, what percentage trash, and all sorts of other categories. There's about 20 some categories that we sorted into. So we find out what is our baseline. And then we do a lot of education and outreach, and I'll talk about those things specifically. And then we do a tagging program, and that'll last for 4 cycles, 4 collection pickups. And then we do an audit on the backside to find out, okay, how do we actually do? What did we achieve? So that's the general overview. I'll go over each of these steps in a little bit more detail. So we start out by doing the audit. That's going to take a week because we do collect a number of samples from different trucks. And this is for all of Warma. So it's about 150,000 people. So there's a lot of participants in this program. The materials are sorted by type, and we determine how much contamination there is for each municipality and what those contaminants are. So we'll have a good idea of what kind of things people in Ypsilanti are putting in their bin that they need some more information about to know that that doesn't go in the bin. And then we do a lot of education. I'll talk about that next. And let's see, we're gonna give those in the results from the audit back to Ron and other members. And then we're also gonna do a lot of a follow-up press release to show what the results were from the audit. So we send a mailer to every resident who is part of a single family home with the information about what is recyclable in your community. So this is the first step. We want to make sure that people have direct information that says, here's what you can put in your container. And then we provide curbside feedback. So we're working with all the haulers, as well as we hire people to go out and they actually flip the lid real quick, look at what's on top, or if it's a bin, just look at what's in the bin on the top. And then there's a tag, so they'll get a warning if there's something in there that'll say, oh, you have something in your container that isn't recyclable. Here's what it was, and they mark it on the tag. And then they also record it in an app so that we have direct information on what kind of things we're seeing. And then we do a follow-up based on what we're seeing and what's been recorded, noting what is the issue that we're seeing the most of. And we actually send a follow-up mailer to everyone that says, for example, in this slide, it says, don't bag your recycling, because that's one thing that we do see a fair amount, is that people would put their recycling in a bag. So maybe it's styrofoam or something else. And we'll create a card that's specific to what we're seeing. So some of the education and outreach, I've already mentioned the info card that we mail. And I mentioned the tags. Here's an example of what the tag looks like and what are the different things that were in the particular bin that got marked so that people know what to do. And then the top issue is as I mentioned, the bags. We're also going to do a radio through EMU, issues in the environment. We're going to do a radio program telling people more about the program. We're going to do a lot of Facebook outreach and next door outreach. We're putting newsletters out there and connecting with municipalities about, here's some things that you can put on your website to give people more information. And then we're also doing a recycle search. So people can actually go to a website, and we're going to give each municipality it's kind of a software package, but it'll be access that you can put that on your municipal website where people can type in a particular material, say it's like a pizza box, for example, and they can look and see, is this pizza box recyclable? And it'll give them information on where and how to recycle that. So as I mentioned, there's the next part is the tagging. And so we'll have a trained group of people. They're currently doing the project in Canton. And so they're already, we have a good setup, because going second is usually a good prospect, because you get people that are well trained and a lot faster at doing the job. So we're getting most of the people who are doing it in Canton right now. And they'll be doing 4 sets of taggings. The first time everyone gets a warning, and it notes, okay, here's what you had in your bin that was contaminated. And then if you make a mistake again in any of the following weeks, then the card is not picked up, and it says, here's a tag that says, please correct this and we'll pick up the bin next time. One of the things that people have mentioned a concern in is, well, this seems a little bit punitive. Will people not participate anymore? We actually have examples, or we have from Kent County, when they did it last fall, they found that people actually set out their bins more, because in week 1 and 2, they were in the 50% of number of people who'd actually put out their cart to the curb. And then they found that in weeks 3 and 4, they actually worked their way up, and they were in the 70s. So there's more people actually putting their carts out later in the program. So that's a positive aspect of the program, where giving people the right tools and giving them some feedback actually encourages people to participate. And I should also mention that every tag has a phone number. We're setting up a hotline, and we're staffing it so that people can call that. And then their concerns will go to us. We've got interns hired for the summer who are going to help us out, answering the phone calls and passing on anything that we need to respond to directly, and providing more information. So that'll happen throughout the summer, and we'll be able to respond to those calls. So with that, I welcome any of your questions. I'll note that I think my time is not best served by answering if beer bottle caps are recyclable or not, but I'll note that they are not. They get separated out in the sorting facility. But if you have any questions specifically related to the grant or the program this summer, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Egremont. Are there any questions from council? Are you done sharing? There we go, so I can see. Any questions from council members? Comments? Mr. Wilcox.
Hi, thank you, Mayor. I don't have any questions. This is fairly straightforward. This kind of program has been run before, and I think that we've been seeing a steady decline of participation, and in the increase in contamination has really made this less effective than it has been. It's the 1970s happened a long time ago. And, we expected at that point that we'd see, by this point, we'd have 100% participation, and it'd be a very effective thing. But we see that this kind of backslides. So I'm glad that, there's some, the whole point of WORMA was to do the education and to see that this is coming out. And I'm glad that the grant's in place. So.
Thank you. Any other council members? Mr. Akers, did you have something you wanted to add or say to us?
I do not, Mayor. I just wanted to thank Theo for coming out and giving the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Egremont, for coming out, and thank you for the good report on Mr. Akers. And we are quite proud of him and our DPS department and the work that they're doing. So, and thank you very much for your time and coming out. We appreciate it.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. And have a good rest of the evening.
You too.
Thank you.
Council, moving on with the agenda. The next item is a proclamation in honor of Pride Month. Councilmember Simmons and Somerville. Go ahead and read that proclamation now.
Thank you.
Whereas the city of Ypsilanti supports the rights of every citizen to experience equality and freedom from discrimination, and whereas all people, regardless of age, gender identity, race, color, religion, marital status, national origin, sexual orientation, or physical challenges, have the right to be treated on the basis of their intrinsic value as human beings. And whereas in support of the city's commitment, the non-discrimination ordinance was approved by council originally on December 16th, 1997, and most recently amended on January 24th, 2017, making these rights the law of the city. And whereas the city of Ypsilanti accepts and welcomes people of diverse backgrounds and believes a diverse population leads to a more vibrant community. And whereas the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer LGBTQ communities contribute to the cultural, civic, and economic successes of the city of Ypsilanti. And whereas while we as a society at large are slowly embracing new definitions of sexuality and gender, we must also acknowledge that the need for education and awareness remains vital to end discrimination and prejudice. And whereas to acknowledge the efforts to bring awareness to the continuing evolution to the gay pride movement, the city of Ypsilanti will display the rainbow flag representing light, healing, sun, calmness, art, and spirit in concert. That should be on there. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the members of the Ypsilanti City Council hereby proclaim June 2021 as Gay Pride Month in the Ypsilanti, Michigan, and encourage our residents to reflect on the ongoing struggle for equality members of the LGBTQ community face and celebrate the contributions that enhance our city.
Is there a motion?
This,
Oh, that was a proclamation. I'm sorry, not a resolution. Thank
there
you.
is a resolution later in the on the agenda.
Okay, thank you. Is there any comments or presentation for that? With that?
I just have a question for the clerk, actually. I
Yeah.
meant to ask you this before we started. So when the resolution that's coming up does specify hanging the flag, I just want to make, so I know that,
The flagpole at the police department.
yeah, well, it doesn't say that in there, so I just wanted to make sure that it specifies just hanging it. It doesn't say where. So in the proclamation, it said in council chambers. So we can just make a motion to decide where we would like it in that resolution for the month. If someone wanted to.
The city, yeah, council could do that. However, the only flagpole that the city has is at the police department.
Right, we could hang it up in a window though, not on a flagpole if we want, if someone made the motion.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
The only thing about council chambers is that council, voted to remove all flags from the chambers. So.
Right, I'm just wondering if I made a motion to display it in one of the windows in the chambers for the month, like technically I could do that. I guess it's a
Mr.
question,
Barr?
but I could do that if I wanted to.
Mr. Bauer?
Yes, certainly, anything can be proposed and it will be discussed if there's a second.
Sure,
Okay.
and then if there's a majority support, we could do that. I just wanted to clarify the location and what motion could be made. So thank you.
Thank
I'll
you.
support.
Clerk Kalinga.
Councilor Lake, I can move on to the next proclamation. Proclamation regarding the epidemic of gun violence, sponsored by Mayor Richardson. Proclamation declares that-
Just on that prior one, I thought, did Annie, the Councilwoman Somerville make a motion and then Jennifer supported it?
Not at this
No,
time.
That was a
later in the
proclamation.
meeting.
Oh, okay.
That
Okay,
was a
cool.
question,
All
not
right.
at this time.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
just wanted to clarify and change the location from where it was displayed last year.
Okay. Sorry about that. Thank you.
This proclamation declares the first Friday in June to be National Gun Violence Awareness Day in the city of Ypsilanti, to honor and remember all victims and survivors of gun violence, and to declare that we as a country must do more to reduce gun violence. Where every day more than 100 Americans are killed by gun violence, alongside more than 230 who are shot and wounded, and on average there are more than 13,000 gun homicides every year. And whereas Americans are 25 times more likely to die by gun homicide than people in other high-income countries. And whereas Michigan has 1,212 gun deaths every year with a rate of 12.1 deaths per 100,000 people. Michigan has the 31st highest rate of gun deaths in the US. And whereas gun homicides and assaults are concentrated in cities, with more than half of all firearm-related gun deaths in the nation occurring in 127 cities. And where cities across the nation, including in Ypsilanti, are working to end the senseless violence with evidence-based solutions. And whereas protecting public safety in communities they serve is mayor's highest responsibility. And whereas support of the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizen goes hand in hand with keeping guns away from people with dangerous histories. And whereas mayors and law enforcement officers know their communities best, are the most familiar with local criminal activity and how to address it, and are best positioned to understand how to keep their citizens safe. And whereas gun violence prevention is more important than ever as the COVID-19 pandemic continues to exacerbate gun violence after more than a year of increased gun sales, increased costs of suicide and domestic violence hotlines, and an increase in city gun violence. Whereas in January 2013, Hadia Pendleton was tragically shot and killed at age 15. And on June 4, 2021, to recognize the 24th birthday of Hadia Pendleton, born June 1st, 1997, people across the United States will recognize National Gun Violence Awareness Day and wear orange in tribute to Hadia Pendleton and other victims of gun violence, the loved ones of those victims. And whereas the idea was inspired by a group of Hadia's friends who asked her classmates to commemorate her life by wearing orange. They chose this color because hunters wear orange to announce themselves to other hunters when out in the woods, and orange is a color that symbolizes the value of human life. And whereas anyone can join this campaign by pledging to wear orange on June 4th, the first Friday in June in 2021, to help raise awareness about gun violence. And whereas by wearing orange on June 4th, 2021, Americans will raise awareness about gun violence and honor the lives of gun violence victims and survivors. And whereas we renew our commitment to reduce gun violence and pledge to do all we can to keep firearms out of the wrong hands and encourage responsible gun ownership to help keep our children safe. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Mayor Richardson of the city of Ypsilanti declares the first Friday in June, June 4, 2021, to be National Gun Violence Awareness Day. I encourage all citizens to support their local communities' efforts to prevent the tragic effects of gun violence and to honor the value of human life.
Thank you, Mr. Halinga.
Mayor, I do believe Celeste is here if you'd like to have her make a comment.
Okay, if wasn't sure if it was at this time or if she was going to speak at the resolution time, but if it's now, please go ahead. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for doing this. And really, I come here tonight and, I listened to all of the public comment and all of the responses from the city council members of the policing that was voted on earlier. And what really left me really emotional was hearing Councilman Brian Jones-Chance talk about the grandma putting her babies to bed in a bathtub. And that is the everyday gun violence that plagues this country. And I think that his statement speaks volumes of the violence that takes place in this country and in the city of Ypsilanti and in Washtenaw County every single day. And so I thank you, Mayor Lois, for having the tenacity that you have and having the courage to not only do this this proclamation. And if I could have that sent to me, Mr. Holinga, I'd really appreciate a copy of it. But also the resolution calling gun violence a public health crisis, which I know we're coming up to later in the agenda, but thank you so much. And one thing, I just actually had an interview today because we have our Moms Demand Action statewide event this Sunday at 1 p.m. It'll be on our Facebook page. And I had an interview today with a reporter from NPR. And when he asked me if I had one more thing to say, I said, yes, I have a message to people. And that message is to properly store firearms, because the deaths that happen with children who get their hands on firearms, we know it's not an accident. It is a preventable tragedy. And so we just want to really amplify that message that it's so important that we properly store firearms, especially where children are present. So again, thank you all so much. And I just appreciate all of the work that you're doing.
Thank you very much, Celeste, for coming to speak with us this evening, and whatever we can do to help, because we're all affected by gun violence. We are. Some of us more closely than others, but we're all affected. So thank you.
Council, moving on to the agenda. If the next item is a proclamation in honor of Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, sponsored by Mayor Richardson. Whereas Asian American and Pacific Islander heritage in the United States was celebrated beginning in 1978 and was made into a month-long event in 1992. And whereas Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month seeks to honor and recognize the contributions of residents from Asia, India, and the Pacific Islands. And whereas today more than 20 million Asian American Pacific Islanders live in the United States, and through their actions make the United States of America a more vibrant, prosperous, and secure nation. And whereas Asian American Pacific Islanders have distinguished themselves as leading researchers in science, medicine, and technology, as innovative farmers and ranchers, as distinguished lawyers, judges, and government leaders, as prominent contributors to the arts, literature, and sports, as war heroes who defended our country from fascism, and as peacetime healthcare heroes currently on the front lines of the COVID-19 pandemic. And whereas while we celebrate the achievements and contributions of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders that enrich our history, society, and culture, we must also acknowledge the additional determination, hard work, and perseverance AAPI individuals must put forth to be heard and seen that these additional efforts are a result of inequitable institutional and systemic injustices, such as those most recently manifested in racist attacks on Asian Americans during the COVID-19 pandemic. And whereas despite their contributions and leadership, the role of AAPI individuals in the US has been consistently overlooked and undervalued in the teaching and study of American history. Therefore, I, Lois Allen Richardson, Mayor of the City of Ypsilanti, hereby proclaim May 2021 as Asian American and Pacific Islander Day in the City of Ypsilanti.
Thank you, Mr. Holinga. And we do apologize for missing that actually in the month of May, but we wanted to make sure that we did recognize AAPI month. So thank you very much.
Also moving on to the next agenda item, consent agenda. Resolution number 2021-110, resolved by the Council of the City of Ypsilanti that the following items be approved. Resolution number 2021-111, approving the minutes of May 18, 2021. Resolution number 2021-112, approving appointments to boards and commissions.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
I'll move.
Support.
Good time.
So we had it moved it twice and supported twice.
Thank you.
So are you calling the roll, Mr. Holinga?
Call the roll now. Council Mayor Pro Tem Brown.
Yes.
Councilmember Somerville,
Yes.
Mayor Richardson,
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan.
Yes.
Councilmember Simmons,
Yes.
Mr. Jones Chance,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilcoxen,
Yes.
motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Council, moving on to the next section, resolution motions and discussions. Resolution number 2021-113, resolved by the council of the city of Ypsilanti, whereas President Bill Clinton declared June Gay and Lesbian Pride Month in June of 2000 to commemorate the June 1969 Stonewall riots in Lower Manhattan. And whereas President Barack Obama expanded the commemoration further by declaring June Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, and Transgender Pride Month. And whereas Pride Month is not only a time of celebration, it is also an opportunity to peacefully protest and raise political awareness of current issues facing the LGBTQ+ community. And whereas much ground has been gained since the 1969 Stonewall riots, however, injustice and negative attitudes remain that threaten the LGBTQ+ community. And whereas the city of Ypsilanti has a place in the history of LGBTQ+, in the successful passing of our inclusive non-discrimination ordinance in 1998, historic victory that received national attention and acclaim. And whereas while the city of Ypsilanti has a long and proud tradition of being an inclusive community, it recognizes as long as injustice exists, it threatens all that has been accomplished. Now therefore be it resolved that the Ypsilanti City Council of the city of Ypsilanti declare June as Pride Month and direct staff to fly the pride flag through the duration of the month.
Your motion?
So moved.
So moved. Support.
It's been moved and supported. Questions, comments?
I just wanted to make a motion. Yeah, I move to amend the resolution to direct staff to fly, I guess, to hang the pride flag in council chambers in the window, on, I guess, off of Huron. Is there support for that?
Support.
It's been moved and second to, the motion was to hang the flag off in a chamber window on Huron Street. Is there further discussion, comments?
I totally support the support that we're allowing for this this month. I just want to make sure that are we going to be consistent with every other support that we show? Will we be flying flags in our council chambers after we made the vote not to? And again, I was even wondering, why would it be at the police station? Was that the ceremonial place where we support like Black Lives Matter or whatever we're supporting? Is that where the ceremonial place of hanging it historically is at the police station?
Councilmember Morgan, that's the only place that the city has a flag.
Flagpole.
Yeah, one flagpole in the city. Okay, well,
Yeah.
I support. Again, whatever measures that we're going to continue supporting every other group, I definitely support.
I think that is a point of discussion. Any other further comments on that from council?
Oh, I guess I'll explain why I made the motion to hang the flag in the window seal instead of on the flagpole. I mean, it's kind of, I mean, given the history of the Stonewall riots, I think it's a little inappropriate. And I heard from several constituents last year who, well, they appreciated the intent behind us hanging the flag at the police station. There are a lot of members of the transgender and, you know, just the LGBTQ community generally that have had negative interactions with the police and have some generational trauma. And I think if we're trying to honor the struggle and the movement that Pride Month represents, then we should do it in a way that is positive for the community that we're trying to both celebrate and, you know, commemorate in that way. So I just think it's the right thing to do.
Councilwoman Simmons.
Councilmember Somerville, I think the question is less about location and more about the hanging of flying of the flag. I think that's maybe the concern that people want to discuss. And I can appreciate that, that folks maybe are uncomfortable with it being at the police department, but as a lesbian and former police officer, you know, there's a large population of LGBTQ folks that are, you know, public servants and public, you know, and police officers. And I think that also we all have to work towards working together and moving forward together. And we can't do that if we, you know, if we keep kind of separating ourselves from each other. And so, you know, and so I'm not criticizing it. I understand it and I'll support wherever. I want the flag up someplace just for this month. And I understand Mr. Morgan's, Councilmember Morgan's concerns about things, but, you know, this is a clear symbol of support, you know, and for the month of this, I think it's good. We have done and continue to do other symbolic measures to support other, you know, groups and, you know, show our support as a city for what kind of city we are. And so I don't think it necessarily has to come down to a flag for everybody. But this is one thing that represents this, you know, month. So I'm okay with that for the month. You know, for me, it's not really about where it's at. It's a statement of our city saying, hey, we're, you know, we're welcoming and whatnot. And, but I know for me, in the set of shoes that I'm in, and I think other people who are public servants that are in the LGBT community, we also want to bridge, you know, build bridges because, you know, we all have to live in the city together. We all have to live on this earth together. And the more we try to just, you know, not include or work together and try to come together, nothing's going to get better, you know, because we can't vote people off the island, right? Because we don't agree with them. So like Mayor Richardson says that love is the answer. I do agree with that. You know, we got to come together and find a way. But anyway, sorry, don't mean to go on a big diatribe. I support it. And that's my thoughts, I guess, on allowing this for a flag, I guess, for the month. I think it is an important statement in our city. Thanks.
Any other question? Any other comments? Council Member Wilcoxon.
I do support this, and I see a great practical reason to have it in the window of City Hall as opposed to the police station. Last time this was flown at the police station, somebody stole the flag. And if this is inside a window, it's a public display. And we had talked about this before being, you know, for a specific month, that was different than having the continual display. So I will support this, and I really think it makes sense to have it in the window. So
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
This is just for clarification.
Yes.
So it sounds like we just have the one flag and this is hanging it in the window instead of the flagpole?
Yes.
Or, okay, so we just got the one? Okay.
Yes.
I mean, I'll go buy another one if we want to hang it elsewhere too.
But it also appears that our last one was stolen. I was unaware of that, so the city will have to.
Sounds like we need another one anyway.
Well, yeah, the former mayor went to lengths to get a new one, and yeah, but thanks for reminding me about that. Councilmember Wilcoxon, I forgot about the theft of the previous one.
It was stolen from the flagpole?
Yeah, a couple days after it was put up.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Morgan, well, your hand is up in your picture. Is your hand up now? Or no?
It's just a picture.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I will support this. I do echo Mr. Morgan in that we do treat all of the flags that we will hang from time to time in the city, that we support them equally. I think there might be some other groups and other flags that we definitely would want to fly at this outside, so that they would be even more visible on the flagpole. However, I will support this, and If there are no other questions or comments, we can call the roll.
Okay, council, this is on the to hang the flag in council chambers, on a council chambers window facing Huron Street. Councilmember Somerville,
Yes.
Mayor Richardson,
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan,
Absolutely, yes.
Councilmember Simmons,
Yes.
Mr. Jones Chance,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilcoxen,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown,
Yes.
motion carries unanimously.
Right, thank you.
And council, are we ready for the resolution as amended?
Any questions?
so.
Okay, seeing none, yes, please call the roll.
Mayor Richardson,
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan,
Yes.
Councilmember Simmons,
Yes.
Mr. Jones Chance,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilcoxen,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Somerville,
Yes.
motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Council, moving on to the next item.
Before you read, do we need to, does the city need to secure another flag, or do we have one?
From what I understood by that conversation, the last flag the city had was stolen. So I'll go ahead and purchase another one to fly in the window.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
You're muted.
Resolution number 2021-094, and this was originally postponed from the May 4th, 2021 agenda. Resolved by the Council of the City of Ypsilanti, whereas President Biden has declared gun violence an epidemic and a public health emergency, and whereas every day more than 100 Americans are killed by gun violence alongside more than 230 who are shot and wounded, and on average there are more than 13,000 gun homicides every year. And whereas Americans are 25 times more likely to die by gun homicide than people in other high income countries. And whereas it is estimated that 99.85% of Americans will know a victim or survivor of gun violence, and 54 of US gun owners admit that they do not store their guns safely. Nearly 1,300 children in the United States die from gun-related injuries every year. Nationally, occupational homicide by shooting has increased steadily since 2011. And whereas the Educational Fund to Stop Gun Violence estimated that more than 1,200 people in Michigan died by gun violence in 2019, an average of more than 3 people every day. Suicides are 61% of gun deaths, and homicides are 38%. And whereas in Washtenaw and most Michigan counties, most gun deaths are by suicide, and access to firearms and domestic abuse situations increases the risk of homicide by more than 5 times, with guns the most used weapon. Recognition of early warning signs and knowledge of how to respond to potential suicide or domestic abuse situations can reduce gun violence and save lives. And whereas since the summer of 2019, the city of Ypsilanti has seen an uptick in gun violence. Between the months of January and August of 2019, the Ypsilanti police reported 30 gun-related cases. And whereas nurses, physicians, and other public health professionals recognize that firearm-related injuries and deaths are a public health epidemic in the United States, and must move toward developing primary prevention strategies that interrupt the transmission of violence. And whereas the U.S. House has passed several gun safety bills and forwarded to the U.S. Senate, where they have been stalled as a result of the gun lobby's strong influence, which runs contrary to the will of the majority of Americans. And whereas the City Council and Ypsilanti Chief of Police discussed solutions to tackle the problem, solutions including reducing the accessibility to guns on the street and forming a dialogue between the community and law enforcement. Or be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Ypsilanti declares gun violence as a matter of public health. Be it further resolved that City Council direct the City Clerk to forward this resolution to President Biden, the city's representatives in the U.S. Congress, Governor Whitmer, Michigan Senate, Michigan House, and the Washtenaw Board of Commissioners.
There's a motion. I heard a second. Did you move? I didn't hear. You moved.
Support.
All right. I heard two. Did I hear Mr. Jones Chance or Mr. Wilcoxon? Okay. It has been moved and moved in second. I just want to say that I heard, certainly I've had thoughts about it, but I heard President Biden himself declare that there was that gun violence was at epidemic proportions, and heard other national leaders declaring the same thing, and knowing and hearing about the gun violence that we have right here in our own city, and the funerals and the wakes that I have attended due to gun violence over the last several years, and just the reports that we have gotten even during last year when things were supposedly locked down. Gun violence certainly is an epidemic, and I understand that just passing a resolution isn't going to stop it, but there's some things, if we bring it, the resolution brings it front and foremost, so that people that are not possibly paying attention, people that where they don't hear the gunshots in the middle of the night or in the middle of the afternoon and not aware of the gun violence that is actually happening, it will bring it more to their attention. So one of the things, and I did speak with Mr. Jones Chance about this, I would like for council, I would like to declare, and like the support of council, that we would establish a task force on gun violence here in the city, using as a base for that task force the committee that unofficial council committee that Mr. Jones Chance did pull together, and they have been meeting and working. I would like to add to that and actually have a task force that would serve the entire city and work on this issue and working towards finding some solutions. I believe it's going to take more than one solution to bring about some changes, but we do need to bring about change. We can't continue on as we have. And yes, we will have additional police on the ground, but we also need to come up with some ideas, some suggestions, some solutions that will come from our people, where we will work together as a citizenry here in the city of Ypsilanti towards bringing an end to gun violence, and not just an end, not expecting an end in the beginning, but certainly to begin to working towards that end where we have begin to see some changes immediately.
Mayor, can I make a comment?
Any other questions, comments?
Can I make a comment?
Mr. Morgan,
Yes.
am I hearing your voice?
Yes, I think, am I too low?
Yes, your volume needs to come up, please.
All right, let me turn
This is a comment. Just a comment, and I appreciate us being aware. It's sometimes I feel like the cart is before the horse, being in a country where, of course, gun sales are on an increase. Gun laws are being lenient. As long as we are in a position of a society where we feel like guns is the answer for security, these things would be misplaced. As long as people are buying guns to feel more safe, and you got people who are in dangerous places that still feel safe, and you have people in safe places that just feel danger. But violence is something that won't ever leave the planet. It's something that's been here, predated us, and it'll be here as long when we're gone. So it's violence, it's danger, and it's safety. And these words get tossed around. As long as guns are being sold, there's going to be more dead bodies. I mean, it's not. It's the equation doesn't work that way, where we're allowing more people to get their hands on firearms, basically lightening what it takes for someone to get a gun, and we think that there will be less deaths. It doesn't work that way. So as long as, again, I just want to say American society, the military, the law enforcement, Charles Bronson, as long as the good guy has the gun, we'll continue to see these trends. But when we start taking guns out of people's hands and literally start communicating and having other effective, durable solutions, will we see the trend decrease? And so, again, most people that I know that have guns feel like they have guns in the name of safety, which I think is arbitrary in itself. So I do support this resolution. Again, and we got to trust the judgment of people who have these firearms, and that's what I'm kind of leery of. But I hope that we can take this seriously and know that these are real epidemics happening. And it's going to, I think, at the end of the day, it's going to, just like with law enforcement, it's going to be determined by people with lethal weapons who make intelligent, smart decisions with their weapons. And that's what it comes down to. So I hope we can not just acknowledge it, but like you say, find some solutions toward the end goal. Thank you.
I hope so too. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Celeste, I see you're still with us, and I appreciate that. With this being your focus right now, or your life's work right now, is there anything that you would like to say to us?
I think that Councilman Morgan just said it really well. You know, as long as there's more firearms present, there's going to be more deaths. You know, the fact is that we have our rate of gun death is 25 times greater than other industrialized countries. And like Councilman Morgan said, you know, people who think that they're going to be safer because they have guns. My dad had a gun. He was a hunter, and he ended up turning that gun on himself and shooting himself. And he died just over 7 years ago. So you're right, though, that just issuing this resolution isn't necessarily going to do anything right now. But the fact that I know that you're sending it off to powerful people like our senators and like President Biden himself, and letting him know that you are taking a stance, the more of us who speak out and speak up, and the more of us who vote on this issue, we have to make gun violence a voting issue. We have to, because over 90% of Americans support background checks. So why don't we have background checks on all gun sales? Because unfortunately, as you said, Mayor Richardson, in the resolution, the gun lobby is they're putting pressure on our congresspeople, and we can't allow that to happen anymore. There's too many lives at stake, over 100 Americans. You know, I look at all these statistics, I look at all these numbers, and those are all people. They're all people, and we're all affected by it. And, you know, for one person who dies due to gun violence, over 2 are injured. And so we are all affected by gun violence. As the resolution states, almost everybody in this country knows someone who has been affected by gun violence. So by speaking up and by issuing this resolution, it's definitely a start. And I know that we will all continue to do the right thing. And I just really, as the local group leader for Moms Demand Action, I appreciate your support, Mayor Lois, and for all of the council members here. My heart goes out to all of you, and just thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other question or comments before we vote? Councilmember Somerville, were you saying something? No? Okay. All right. Okay, seeing no hands, I can't see you, Mr. Jones Chance. Did you want to say something?
No.
No? Okay. All right, Mr. Halenga, would you please, oh, the other thing I want to say before we vote, Mr. Halenga, would you please circulate this resolution amongst council members before you send it off so that it's signed by, signed unanimously, if we have a unanimous vote, please. Thank you.
Councilmember Morgan,
Yes.
Councilmember,
Yes.
Mr. Jones Chance,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilcoxen,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Somerville,
Yes.
Mayor Richardson,
Yes.
motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. And council, please, if you would, look over your ward, your constituents, and please have someone ready to recommend, or somebody that really has a heart for this and would like to serve on the task force. Thank you. Mr. Halenga.
Council moving forward with resolution number 2021-114. Resolved by the council of the city of Ypsilanti that the attached fee schedule is adopted pursuant to the Ypsilanti City Code, and the following fees relating to various sections of the city code and activities of the city are hereby established, and the various city departments are authorized to charge and collect such fees effective immediately.
Is there a motion?
So
and
moved.
support?
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Questions, comments? Councilmember Somerville.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to reduce the parking permit fee for residents in the downtown residential parking district. I think it's District C, from the current cost is $300. So I'd be interested in, right now you can pay for 4-month increments at $115. I'd like to propose that we reduce that to 4 increments of $57.50.
Support.
And that makes a total of how much?
$150 rather than 300, sorry.
So you want to cut it in half?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Just want to get an understanding. Any discussion on the motion?
Yeah, I'll give some background. I've talked about, if that's okay, if no one else.
Yes, please do.
Yeah, I've brought this up a few times. Right now, many people are not buying parking permits because they can't afford the fees at that cost. So I know that it's been mentioned that the fees have been the same for many, many years. But what I noticed in some of the lots, there just aren't people getting permits, so they're empty during the daytime hours. This issue kind of was even more important during COVID when everybody was working from home. So people who were used to not being home during like 8 to 6 were now home all day downtown. I just think it's more of an equity issue more than anything else. Many of the neighborhoods, a short walking distance to this district, only pay, I think it's $30 now a year. And then they can get an additional parking pass for visitors at 10. And I've heard the argument that, well, they live downtown, that's more of a luxury, but I mean, people just need a place to live. $300 for a parking permit. What ends up happening is they get several tickets that end up costing more than that parking permit. This, I think lowering the cost will actually activate people to purchase the passes and will actually probably generate more revenue rather than generating revenue from ticketing.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Council, if I could get clarification on that motion, you want 50, you would like 57.50 for a 4-month increment and then annually $150?
Correct.
Mayor, I have a question.
Okay, yes, I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand.
Oh, that's okay. I was wondering if Ms. Wessler could explain to us how these the different price categories were set, how it compares to others, just to help us understand the rationale behind the fees.
All right, thank you. Ms. Wessler? Ms. Wessler?
Good evening, Council.
Good
Sorry, I'm
evening.
having some technical difficulties tonight. These fees were set largely by the cost it takes to maintain these various properties. You'll see actually that the fee for the outlying residential permit parking is proposed to increase to $40 per year from $33. That's partially offset some of the cost to maintain that pavement, but also for the new online permitting, approximately per year, the cost is closer to about $100. It's pretty similar for the downtown parking. There we're actually trying to capture the cost of lots. And the lots, as opposed to streets, you have to actually include all of the infrastructure behind the lot. So it's not just the pavement being a little bit wider. It's the stormwater, it's the lighting, it's the painting, it's everything that goes into maintaining the lots. And so that is largely why the costs are higher. I would also like to make just a very teeny tiny note. The ordinance actually divides the permit year into 3 sections, not into 4. So even though we call it a quarterly permit, it's a 3rd year permit for those abbreviated, not full year permits.
So actually, they would be paying $100 every 3 months
If
or every 4 months, $100 every 4 months.
it's 115 right now, I believe, 115.
Well, if it's
Sorry, I meant to
300
say every 4 months, not
Okay.
quarterly. That was my fault.
I just wanted to make sure that the math was
Yeah,
gonna
my
make sense at
apologies.
the
Yeah,
end.
no. Yeah, so right now, people have the option, Mayor, to pay 115 every 4 months. My proposal would be to reduce that to 57.50 every 4 months.
So but
Mm.
115 3 times a year, that brings it up to 345. So it's actually more than 300.
I think they get isn't it reduced for people who pay in full?
Yes.
By purpose, yeah, I think that works out, so it's you spend less if you just pay it in full one time.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on the motion? Mr. Halenga, would you remind us again of the motion? How the motion reads?
Council, the motion was to decrease costs of downtown parking permits to $57.50 for a 4-month increment and annually for $150.
I have a comment.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, Mr. Morgan.
Yeah, my comment is, although there is a difference in fees between, I guess, Ward 1, Ward 2, and downtown. My question is, because I have been over the last 6 months, I have been contacted by a constituent or two that had some words to say about this specific fees. However, I just don't know how many we're selling versus how many people have an issue with it if changing the fee schedule is the thing to do because of a very few people. I don't know if the number of people who have an issue should dictate like I haven't heard that many, but I'm sure it's still an issue, even if it's for one, but it shouldn't determine the whole entire fee schedule. That's what my statement is. I do believe that there is a difference in pay. I do think there's different ways to pay it. I don't think taking half, I think it's a bit much, but I do think it should be comparable to people's living situations.
Anyone else? Any other comments? Ms. Somerville.
I just wanted to make one clarification. Residential permit passes, not for like non-residential.
So you'd like to maintain the 115 per 4-month increment and 300 annually for business parking?
Yeah, the purpose of my amendment was just for residents living in that district.
Can we actually do that, Mr. Bauer, charge 2 different fees in the same parking lot?
Yes, you can if there's a rational reason for it, which is the location and so on.
Okay, thank you. Okay, seeing no further, not seeing any hands for, okay, Ms. Wessler.
I do just want to point out for Councilmember Morgan's, per something that he said, we are proposing also an income-based reduction for people who are income eligible. That would amount to 80% approximately of the pass cost. So for residential permits, that brings the pass cost down from $300 per year down to, I believe, $60 per year, or $23 per 4-month period.
From 300 to 60?
Yes.
Where
And
is
they have
that?
to, okay.
So that's
Yeah.
less than Councilmember Somerville's motion?
Yes.
Okay.
But that's income-based?
Yes.
So what is the income that would pay the $60?
We've been speaking with the Washtenaw County Office of Community and Economic Development. And if somebody qualifies for any sort of assistance effectively, so if they're on temporary assistance for needy families, if they are on unemployment, if they have, qualify for housing subsidies, things like that.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Somerville.
Yeah, I guess one thing that I would just like to add that, well, I don't know, I feel like many people in this district on paper probably make between like 35 and 45,000 a year or more, but their rent, when you factor in your rent and your other cost of living, an additional $300 fee for one time, many people just don't have that, but they wouldn't qualify for the reduction based on income, because on paper, it seems like they could afford that. But the reality is, if their rent just went up $100 or $200 and their grocery bill went up by $20 or $40 and their cat gets sick and they have a vet bill to pay, there's just a lot of things that happen in life preventing people from even paying $57 for a parking permit every 4 months. So I just think that, and those people wouldn't necessarily get this reduction based on income. So I just want to put that into perspective a little bit.
Okay.
But the parking ticket would, could set them off for like months if they get a parking ticket that they can't afford.
Okay, thank you. Going?
I have a question.
Yes.
Would adopting this change affect the income-based fee. So would this then become an 80% discount on the new rate?
Ms. Westler, I believe that's a question for you.
I believe that the proposal was to address the desire to make some changes in the fees. And so that was one of the things staff was planning to do. That was not on top of what was already proposed. That was just proposed by Councilmember Somerville. So the answer is no, it wouldn't be on top.
Okay, thank you. Did that answer your question, Mr. Jones-Chance?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, seeing no other hands on the motion, we need to vote. Would you call the roll on the motion? Does anyone need the motion repeated?
Yes.
Thank you. Would you repeat the motion, please?
To decrease cost of downtown residential permits to $57.50 for a 4-month increment and annually for $150.
Thank you.
And then roll on the amendment. Councilmember Simmons,
No.
Mr. Jones-Chance,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilcoxen,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Somerville,
Yes.
Mayor Richardson,
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan.
No.
Motion carries with 5 yes, 2 no.
Thank you. Now, is there any discussion or questions on the original resolution? Okay, seeing none and hearing none, would you call the roll, please, Mr. Halinga?
On the fee schedule as amended, Mr. Jones-Chance,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilcoxen,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Somerville,
Yes.
Mayor Richardson,
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan,
Yes.
Councilmember Simmons.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Council, moving on to the next item, resolution number 2021-115. Resolved by the council of the city of Ypsilanti, whereas the city of Ypsilanti has received funding from the Washtenaw County Road Millage and Michigan Department of Transportation. And whereas the city of Ypsilanti has received bids for a road rehabilitation project of Oakwood between Sherman and Congress, railroad track removal on Spring, and all other necessary related work. And whereas the lowest responsive qualified contractor for the project was Gibraltar Construction Company with a bid amount of $288,739.50. And now therefore be it resolved that the city of Ypsilanti City Council approves the contract with Gibraltar Construction Company to complete the road rehabilitation project on Oakwood between Sherman and Congress and remove the railroad track on Spring for the bid amount of $288,739.50. And that the mayor and city clerk are authorized to sign this contract subject to the approval of the city attorney to facilitate completion of the work, and any change order shall be approved by the city manager.
That's a move.
Is there support?
Support.
Okay, who was that support? I heard two voices.
I think I got it first.
Okay.
I don't know about that, but I'll let you have it, Jennifer.
Well, Councilmember, Ms. Somerville, you've been on it tonight. You and Mr. Wilcoxen. I think you've might have a record going. Okay, any question? Oh, I see Mr. Akers. Do you want to start talking to us, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. This resolution is to award a contract to perform the road rehabilitation project on Oakwood between Sherman and Congress and to remove the railroad tracks which cross Spring Street. The contract value is $288,739.50. As council may know, the Oakwood project is a project which was selected by council, and we will be utilizing our county road millage funding and some of our major street funds. And then the railroad track removal is actually being required by MDOT, and they are supporting the project with approximately $31,000 in grant funding. So sealed bids were received and publicly read. We received 4 proposals ranging from the proposed contract value all the way up to $344,666. And of those proposals, Gibraltar Construction Company was the lowest responsive bidder. The contractor has completed similar projects, and our engineers have indicated in their recommendation letter that they have sufficient qualifications to be awarded the contract. From a budgeting perspective, this project did come in about $1,500 higher than what our original estimates were. Considering some of the cost increases we've seen due to COVID, this is actually good, considering as high as it could have gone. I have included the net cost for the project in my summary, and this concludes my summary. Myself and OHM engineer Jackson are available if council has questions.
Great, thank you. Any comments or questions?
Mr. Akers, when I've seen like on our budget, when you see the forms, how people, I guess those are jobs that we're doing in the city, but like, what's the process like when how many people are sitting down looking over the forms when it comes to actually selecting a bid?
So the normal process is we would have a contract book and a design for the project put together. That's usually completed by our engineer. There's typically a design engineering proposal that goes for the camera. Or in front of council, excuse me. So what they'll do is they'll put that information together. We'll submit it to a bidding website. We use a public bidding website called BidNet Direct. And so companies, what they'll do is they'll go on there, get the information and submit their bids to the city clerk's office. When we go out, we advertise a specific time where we open the bids. And so what'll end up happening is at that specific time, we stop accepting bids. And then generally the city clerk will read the pricing and make sure all the documents are in order. After the public bid opening is received, we take all the documentations, they're reviewed by by OHM, the city's engineer.
And when you say we, are you talking about your team? Who is we?
No, it's the engineers. It's
okay.
OHM. They are doing the review. That's part of our design engineering contract with them.
Thank you. No more questions. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Mr. Wilcoxon.
We've seen these before, and I never thought to ask, when you do BidNet, is there any are there contractors that would be excluded by using that service?
No, from my understanding, it is a public. It's publicly available, from what I understand.
And it's free software, so it's not like anybody. It's smaller contractors would be at a disadvantage for bidding.
I do not believe so. Again, I can follow up and take a look, but my understanding is that it's out there, it's public, and you know, anybody who is an eligible contractor would be able to
have it. Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, Mr. Halinga, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Wilcoxon,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Somerville,
Yes.
Richardson,
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan,
Yes.
Councilmember Simmons,
Yes.
Mr. Jones Chance,
Yes.
motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Akers.
Council, moving on to the next resolution. Resolution number 2021-116, resolved by the council of the city of Ypsilanti. Whereas the city is considering awarding a contract for a rehabilitation project on Oakwood from Sherman to Congress and to remove the railroad tracks on Spring Street. And whereas if a contract is awarded, construction engineering services will need to be provided to ensure quality control measures are met. And whereas the city engineer OHM has prepared a proposal to provide such services, now therefore be it resolved that the city of Ypsilanti approves the proposal from OHM for construction engineering service for an amount of $42,850. That the mayor and city clerk are authorized to sign this contract, subject to the approval by the city attorney to facilitate the completion of this work, and any change orders shall be approved by the city manager.
I'll move.
Is there a
Support.
support?
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Discussion? Questions? Mr. Akers, you have something for us?
The only thing I have is essentially the summary that it's an amount not to exceed $42,850. It's to provide construction engineering services for both the road rehab on Oakwood and the spring track removal. Construction engineering is a typical component. Ensures that the work it's a quality control purpose, and it ensures that the work is being completed properly. The proposal is below the amount we have budgeted for this item by approximately $2,000. And again, that concludes my summary, and I can answer any questions.
All right, thank you very much. Any questions? Comments? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Lincoln, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Somerville,
Yes.
Mayor Richardson,
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan,
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Mr. Jones Chance,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilcoxen,
Yes.
motion carries unanimously.
All right, thank you.
Council, next item on the agenda is a discussion regarding summer events that was added today by the mayor.
I added this, I got calls from some council members wanting to readdress this, particularly in light of the governor's recent release and removal of restrictions. And so I wanted to bring it back and see if council wanted to readdress it, or what was the pleasure. So I'm open for council to talk. Those council people that called and wanted it to bring it back would please raise your
Well,
hand.
well, my hand is up in my picture, but again, in lieu, I think this is a complicated issue, because I have been, I don't want to say bombarded, but there have been constituents who wonder why we're not following the suit of the statewide, what the governor and the CDC had brought forth. And so, being the city, I think one of the last cities in the state who has, I guess, still shut down for events. People thought it was arbitrary misuse of power, or I think in protecting our citizens is of the utmost importance, and how we do it is going to be critical. So again, I heard a lot of backlash. I heard some compelling arguments about the numbers and what people think and feel, and so I just wanted to make sure that at least we could bring it back up to see Again, we have canceled some events this year, and of course, we all know that the city is going to lose certain revenue that it would have had from last year and this year. I don't want to be a squeaky wheel and thinking that we have to be in accordance with we have a right and we have a duty to keep our citizens as safe as we possibly can, regardless of what any other municipality is doing. That's my heartfelt take on it. But again, things are opening up so fast that it's hard to regulate. I think when it comes to people, as far as the HIPAA, no one's supposed to, I guess people ask and shame about who has vaccination, who don't, people who wear masks. There's still a lot of misinformation about people coming from other places. So I'm not certain. I just thought that I would support the will of council if this came back up. And again, I know a lot of business owners and people with their own specific feelings feel like we're being unfair to their opportunities to have events and do business. And so I just wanted to, hopefully we can clear some of those things up with this discussion.
Thank you. Mr. Jones-Chance.
Yeah, and I've heard a lot of the similar arguments, but for me, what it comes down to is, the March 25th of 2020, granted testing was not what it is now. 7-day average was 316 cases. Right now, as of the 31st, we're at 612. I don't understand how we're cool to reopen at double the cases as before. And I understand some of the business arguments. Obviously, I own businesses, but you don't need to worry about us. That's not, that shouldn't be a factor. I would err on the side of safety. Although I do think we should bring this up at every meeting. Because as the situation changes, obviously we're gonna have to change the policy. I'm just not convinced right now that it's today. I mean, it feels like we're close, but I'm just not sure. And if I'm not sure and people's lives are at stake, then obviously I'm gonna err on the side of caution.
Ms. Somerville.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of just ready for us to allow people to book events. There are events being booked already, like they're private events. I found that out last Thursday when there was a violinist playing at Riverside Park and a crowd of people who bought tickets. And I think given, where the state's heading by July 1st, I don't know. At this point, I would like us to give staff a better direction as we go and, get deep into the summer. It's not summer yet, but we're basically there. I really think at this point, we just need to give staff more clarity, and it's been a little bit confusing, especially given that we have some events going on with the street closures that have been permitted, and then other things are, I just think it's very unclear for staff right now, and it's not fair to put them in that position. I don't think that we've given the people responsible for running the city the clear guidance or direction for them to be able to do their job. And that's what we're here for. So I'd actually like to make a motion to allow full range of events to be booked if people apply for them. I don't know if anyone's willing to support that, but I think we need to give staff clearer direction. And it's been a little.
I'll support it, Annie.
Okay, it's been moved and supported. I have a question. It's a clarifying question. What do you mean by full range of events?
So events are still being booked, just not like large events. I think some of the events that people had issues with that might not be booked, those aren't going to be booked anymore. Like Beer Fest isn't going to be booked. But I do think by us bringing down that restriction we've kind of put in place, it'll give staff a clearer understanding of what they can permit or not. Right, we just said large events, but we still allow private events happening in Riverside and other places. That, like, there was a concert in Riverside Park last week. So I think that, like, the same people complaining about car shows not happening might think that's a little strange. I don't know. What I'm hearing from people in the community is that it's very confusing to see, you know, things come down from the CDC and the governor. And then, I mean, when restaurants lift their capacity, it's like we close the streets off so they could expand out into the streets. And now their capacity is actually going to be 100% because of the, you know, the additional seats. So I don't know. I think that it's still, you know, difficult for people to move on. We're still living through a pandemic, right? It's not over. But in order for our staff to do their jobs, right, we just need to give them clear direction. We're allowing some events to happen. Events are happening where things are allowed to be permitted in spaces where the streets are closed. So if someone wants to book a public event at Riverside or any other park, I feel like there's confusion. And we basically said no 2 weeks in a row. And then other people have said that we are allowing certain things to happen, even though council 2 times in a row said no. So I just think staff needs clear guidance. I think certain big events that typically happen are just not going to happen because it's too late. The car shows are not going to happen. Beer Fest won't happen. But in terms of like fall planning, it might be a good idea to allow staff to book those as needed. As
Okay,
requested.
so are you saying that if we have requests for, we might think it's too late for the Beer Fest or for one of the other large, super large festivals? I remember that you were quite opposed to those before. So are you saying now that we should allow those?
When we first talked about the Volkswagen Festival, that was at the end of April, beginning of May, when we
Right.
weren't even sure that we were gonna have enough vaccines by this time. I mean, I know Brian just said that we can talk about it every week. So if we have to roll back a decision 2 months from now, we can do that. But I think for right now, the best way to give staff clear guidance, I mean, there's just a lot of confusion right now from people both in the community who are trying to book events and staff who's just trying to enforce what council has previously said. So that's basically, I mean, that's the, yeah.
Okay, Mr. Wilcox, and I'll come back to you. The city manager's had her hand up. Before city manager, Mr. Jones Chance, your hand is still up. Is it up or?
Yeah, it's up.
Okay, well, you were first.
I
I'll
just
go
had
to
I mean, I agree about the clarity. I wonder if maybe we can't set some sort of a target for county or zip code vaccination rates, or maybe a 7-day average number from an agreed upon source where we will open things up, some kind of a verifiable benchmark. I do also agree, though, that whatever we do, it needs to be consistent. I also got the email about the event in the park. Yeah, I'm not sure there's a right answer, but I agree with the need for some kind of clarity. I wonder though if maybe we couldn't use an objective metric.
Okay, thank you. City manager McMullen.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
I appreciate all the comments I've heard tonight, and I do agree that staff is looking for direction from council. And I'd like to also explain that some of the events that are happening in these parks, when they come to us, they tell us one thing and they do something else. They will schedule it as a private event, and then it just kind of like gets, big or whatever. And we haven't ticketed them for that. So we're trying to be extra careful with that. We've remained consistent with saying no to public events, especially when the person that is applying for it says that it's open to the public, because then we know that it has the potential to get large and we can't really quantify at that time. So we've been saying no consistently to those. And you're right, where there's already street closures, we've been allowing because the street's already closed and they kind of police themselves. And I asked that question a couple of meetings ago, how do they police people at the street closures? And Mr. Jacobs, talked about how people are out there and they give them masks and they try to make sure they keep the social distancing requirements. So, because that was one of my concerns as well. But if we decide to open them back up, I am for sure that we will have some of those major events coming back to us. I've already heard from the Beer Fest and they're just waiting. They're just going to schedule a different day. So, and then the car show that wanted to happen, they wanted to happen, I can't remember, around the 19th or something. But so they may come back, I'm not sure. But just having clear guidelines that now public events are allowed, that would help us tremendously. And I understand how the public feels and other people feel when they see these things going on. And it's not that we've allowed them to do it. We've done our best policing and being consistent in our answer. But when someone says they're having a private event and they say that the number expected is below, we take them at their word. So, and usually it turns out to be something even bigger, like we even seen last year with the pop-up shops, they got big. We thought, oh, pop-up shop, people are just gonna come and shop and they're gonna go. Well, it turned into something else. So I just kind of want to make that known. So I appreciate council taking this time to clarify for staff so we know how to act going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wilcoxon.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
I guess I have some confusion on my part about what is being allowed in street closures. When we closed the streets, it was stated to be for the benefit of the restaurants that bordered those particular streets. And so if there's something else happening there other than just the restaurants having more seating, then that's not something I voted for. So if there's something else going on there, I didn't vote for that. And the question is, if when we voted on this before, we voted not to have public events in public parks, and I thought that was specific language. So I'm not sure how things have gotten permitted that were not within that language.
So we have First Fridays, as you know, that's on Washington. So that's one of the events for the street closures. We haven't had any like entertainment or anything like that in Depot Town down in those street closures. So basically it's the First Fridays. And I did ask Christopher to explain how, they follow CDC guidelines and keep people safe. Well, the area is not so big, so you can only have a certain amount of people. But Christopher, if you're on and you could just kind of explain that just a little bit. And the other one, there aren't any public, you're right, there aren't any public events being allowed, but the events, as I said, that you see in these public parks are those that are downscaled. And they didn't necessarily require, like a level one or anything. It was supposed to be a baby shower or something like that. And, or at least that's how they applied for it in a different kind of way. So Christopher,
They applied for a baby shower and it turned into a.
No, that was an example. That was
I know, but I meant, well, just using your example of baby shower. So they applied for baby shower, birthday party, wedding reception, and that was to be a certain size and it grew. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm saying that they applied for something significantly smaller. than what it ended up maybe being. Because when I talk with Wendy, we go over everything and she says, this is private, small, and then I haven't seen it personally, but from what I'm hearing, they must be growing because people, are saying that these are large events happening. So, and we haven't permitted any of those. But Christopher, can you talk about the First Fridays? Because I think that's the one thing that there's a one street closure that brings people in.
Yep. So music is permitted as part of the street closures. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about having a noise permit within the guidelines of what city council allowed, not holding big festivals or huge special events. We offer pretty modest entertainment in terms of music on the street closure during the Fridays and Saturdays as it's permitted in the resolution. There is First Fridays, which is a self-guided art and cultural walk. It's not an event per se. So it happens at different locations spread across downtown, Depot Town, and West Cross. And so it's not like we get 100 people and there's this start, everyone's condensed in one small area. And I apologize, there's sirens going on behind me. That I think is the primary difference. We're not holding festivals on the street. We're simply offering an opportunity for local artists, musicians to play the street as a complement to what's happening with dining in the street closure area. And so I want to make that distinction from the private events that are happening elsewhere at places like the park or places like the Freight House. And I think that's why it's kind of confusing, is because we group all these things sort of together when we talk about what's going on and what people are doing.
Thank you, Christopher.
Thank you.
Thanks. I guess I'm looking at numbers here while we're talking about this, and at some point there was talk about, when we get to 5% vaccination rates, then that was a benchmark, right? And we're at 42, and we're pretty high for compared to other places, but when did that move? I don't know. I don't understand that, but I don't think it's time yet. I just don't. It may be in a month or so, depending on what cases look like, but I just don't think it's time right now.
Clerk Kalinga or City Manager McMullen, do either of you know the most recent numbers for 48197 and 48198? The infection rate and other statistics, numbers for most recent numbers for our area?
Pulling it up right now.
Thank you.
So confirmed cases as of 5/27 is, let's see, 48197, 514, 48198, 265. Let me see if I can find the vaccination.
And that 500 rate number you just gave, that was for 527 for one day?
No, that's that's in the past 2 weeks. 11 in the county, there was 11 today. There's 11 confirmed cases, 1 hospitalization and 1 death. And that's in the county. I don't see anything on vaccination rates, but let me see if I can. Okay, there's nothing that I see broken down by zip code, but in Washtenaw County. 50,285 have had the first dose, and 41,559 have had the second dose. And that's in the county.
So there's 41,000 fully vaccinated.
In the county.
Okay, and that 527, what was on May 27th?
As
But
of
then-
May 27th, there was 512 in 48197.
And that was for what length of time, please? It was
I
for
didn't hear
two,
that.
you said it was for 2 weeks?
Yes, I believe, if I'm reading it correctly. Let me see. Yeah, it says 2-week snapshot. So 5/13 to 5/26.
And there were 500 new cases. Do they give the number of deaths in that same 2 week period?
They do not.
They do not,
They do not.
or the hospitalizations?
What I'm looking at is total lab confirmed cases, probable cases, percentage of population who are confirmed or probable, and confirmed cases in the last 2 weeks. So I apologize, the confirmed cases in the last 2 weeks, that's the probable cases is 514 and 4819. Confirmed is only 53. And then in 48198, probable cases 265, confirmed 58.
Okay.
Yeah, I was looking at that. I was like, wait, this looks smaller than that.
So I don't know if you want to go off of probable cases or confirmed, but that's up to council.
Thank you. And by probable, does that mean that they have tested or
I would imagine it
have
doesn't mean that they-
results not in yet? Is that what that is?
I do not know.
No, okay. I don't either. City manager, do you know by chance know what they mean by probable?
I sure don't.
Okay.
It could just be symptoms, Mayor.
Yeah. I'm thinking that it would have to be cases that they had tested but not results, to be probable. But is there any other questions or discussions? Okay, seeing none. City manager, your hand is still up. Is
Oh,
it
I'm
up?
sorry. I need
That's
to take
okay.
down.
Just wanted to check it before all right. Well, if there are no other, I've heard one say, let's lift. I heard one say no. Is there can we come to any kind of consensus?
Well, Mayor, there is a motion on the table to allow for special events this summer.
Right, that's the motion from Ms. Somerville. Okay. All right, can we take and her explanation was that all events, correct?
Was to allow for a full range of
Full
events
range.
summer of 2021.
Wait, now, repeat that, please.
Allow for full range of events for summer of 2021.
Okay, full range. Okay, can we have a vote on the
I just
motion?
wanted to, sorry, I just wanted to add one more thing. So like there are events that people were planning on having that are not going to be like the Juneteenth event wouldn't be able to happen if we don't allow special events. So I just think that we should consider we can't just let one and not the rest, but I think we should really consider opening it up. And if things happen to get worse, we're going to have county and state restrictions that come back into effect if they need to be. But right now, there are things that people in the community want to do, but aren't going to be able to do unless we reconsider how we're directing staff to operate our permit process. I mean, I understand, these are all tough decisions, but I do think that we have public health officials that are in place to step in and stop, if there needs to be a rollback, that will happen. But we are limiting things from being able to happen, and we're putting staff in a pretty bad spot to determine, to work, when people, they just have to deny them. So I just think we, should consider that, but it doesn't sound like there's much support, but I just, want to highlight the fact that we are preventing some positive community events from happening by saying no, where we could say yes. And if things get bad again, we have county health officials and state health officials, and we also have, our role as council members to step in and say, hey, wait a minute, we need to reconsider this because things, the numbers are high. This isn't going the way that we thought it was. But I think for now, we are limiting some of the positive outdoor events that people could be participating in over the summer.
Okay, but also the size. Mr. Bauer, I saw you.
Yes, Your Honor, I was wondering about a clarification. As I understand the motion on the floor, if this takes away any prohibition against special events, except as would be regulated by the county or the health department and so on. Is that the intention?
Ms. Somerville, is that your intention?
Yes.
Okay, and there would be no, and yours is for all events, okay. Mr.
Yeah, and sorry,
Right.
I just want to ask the city manager one question. I mean, I just want to, is that the clearest way for me to, is that the clearest way for me to make the motion for staff to handle the permitting process? Is there a better way, or is
Yeah,
that the clearest?
I think that is the best way. That just kind of puts things back to normal.
Okay, that's what I
And-
thought. I mean, that's my intention. I think, yeah, that's my intention here, so.
Okay, but also we could put some limits on numbers. Okay, okay, Mr. Morgan, I saw your hand, Mr. Morgan, Mr. Jones Chance, Mr. Wilcoxon. That order, please.
I believe my only statement is, well, it seems as if, of course, we voted to have the streets open, and I know the DDA or the First Fridays are happening. It seems as if these can be potential loopholes, because what's alarming is that people can say they have a certain event that's catered for this, and then it end up getting out of control. We can't even control that. We can't even control the fact that people are not doing what they say. How do we enforce the small things? We just used the example. If someone says they're gonna have a baby shower with 12 people and you look up and it's 62 people, what are we doing to curtail that? And so the same things could potentially happen, whether we say, obviously we haven't given, well, I don't know if we've given permission, because we haven't given permission for the events that have happened. We've given permission for some of the private things that have clearly gotten out of hand. So if we cannot, not say cannot, if we choose to not or mildly enforce those, we're giving the wrong signal that we can't even enforce the things that go over. So if we do start having large events that get out of hand, it's not saying that people have confidence in us patrolling or enforcing our own people. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jones Chance.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for setting a benchmark or a target. I think that might give everyone some clarity about at least when to expect things. My main concern is, while yes, we can go back and change this, the way we find out if we screwed up is if people get sick and possibly die. And that's not, at least for me, doesn't feel like an acceptable way to go. But I think we should have some, I would like to see some kind of a benchmark. So maybe if we took the 2-week moving average from the beginning of the pandemic, say like March 25th when the shutdown began, And, the last 2 weeks or something, and we can decide maybe what a significant decline would look like. I'd feel more comfortable with something that's objective.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Wilcoxen.
Thank you, Mayor. The proposal that's on the table right now has no start date. There's no time frame. It said for the summer. Are we taking that as the summer solstice is the beginning of that? If that's the case, then Juneteenth is out of the way. I see this as a financial argument, right? And people are saying we're not following science, and to me, the CDC and the state are not necessarily following science either, because they've gone back on their own statements so many times that what is that? So I don't understand how we can you can't pull it back. I don't agree with that. We have seen this happen before where things were relaxed and people got sick, and then it was like, oh shit, we shouldn't have done that. And it's like, are we stepping into that right now? And I see a measured and staged return to those kinds of events, and we've been doing that with small events and trying to do that in different ways. But just like opening the floodgates, we've seen what that looked like before, and I don't see how we're conforming to the pre. I can't articulate this. I just don't think this is the right time to be doing this. I'm perfectly willing to address this going forward, but I just don't think now is the time to do it.
Ms. Somerville.
Yeah, I just want to make a change to my motion. I'd like the motion to actually read, I move to allow special events effective June 1st, 2021, with a maximum capacity of 500 people. Jennifer, is that cool with you?
Okay, so with a maximum of 500 people, would the festivals fit within that number, city manager? Would we be able to regulate the festivals and keep them within that number of 500?
500, I don't know how we would regulate the count, honestly, Mayor. Unless we would probably make the event sponsor responsible for the number of people, maybe by having a counter, a counter and having, an entrance. Well, I basically we never kept count. So when it was the full range. So I prefer not to have the count on there. Because if you're going with back to normal, just back to normal, instead of counting people. But that's not my my job to say. But
Okay. Sorry, I don't want to make it more complicated. So I just moved to make the motion reflect June 1st, 2021 for special event permits.
Okay, and see, I could vote for a limit, but not just completely open as we've always done. So
the state require the state policy allows how many outside?
I thought it was 1,000.
In a certain amount of space?
In a certain amount of space, because there had to be distance.
Yeah, it can't be just.
No, there was distancing with the state said, so.
And how has compliance been for that?
I don't know. I haven't, heard any reports of state, of large events around the state. But I do know that there was some regulations on on distancing. I think there was there were X number of people per square footage or something of that sort.
All right. Well, I'm gonna keep my motion where it's at. I appreciate all of the feedback from everyone.
So now did Councilwoman Simmons, did she go back and support you? Because that
Yeah,
motion is
to
back and
clarify.
forth.
Yeah, to clarify, for the motion would be for today, June 1st, 2021, moving forward. So no timeline, just effective today.
For the record, assent and should be verbal, please.
Jennifer.
Thank you.
Sorry, what's that?
I think you just,
You have to verbalize your consent.
Oh, yes, I do. Yes, sorry.
Okay, so to clarify your motion, if I understand it correctly, your motion is now that as of June 1st, that any size, that any event would be okay within the city.
for staff to
Any
permit.
size event, starting June 1st.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I have one question on that. I do believe that there are still some state regulations in effect on the size of events until July 1.
Correct.
Can Clerk Kalinga, could you maybe look that up right quick, please?
I'm sorry, what was the question, Mayor?
Okay, I do believe that the state still has some regulations regarding events between now and July 1st. Mr. Bauer,
Yes, this is very new. I saw something on the internet about it. And I believe that the health department determined that public event or open events outside are okay, but there's still limits on private and in events that are inside.
all right, thank you. Mr. Wilcoxon.
I have the state's website up and it says beginning June 1st, there will no longer be capacity limits outdoors. There will no longer be capacity limits at residential gatherings. Indoor establishments will be at 50% capacity. Social gatherings will now be regulated only by the venue. For example, guidelines on rules for an indoor wedding or conference would be set by the establishment in which it is hosted. Face masks continue to be required for non-vaccinated individual indoors.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so it sounds like no limits would be within those guidelines. Any other questions or comments? Mayor Pro Tem Brown, we haven't heard from you. Do you have anything to add to this discussion? Mayor Pro Tem.
Sorry, I hit the wrong button.
That's okay.
No, most of the questions that I have been asked actually, so I'm just here mulling it over.
Okay, thank you. Well, Mr. Halinga, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Somerville,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown,
Come back to me, please.
Councilmember Morgan,
No.
Councilmember Simmons,
Yes.
Mr. Jones Chance,
No.
Councilmember Wilcoxon,
No.
Mayor Richardson,
Oh, wow. Come back to me.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown,
Sorry, you all.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown,
No.
Mayor Richardson,
Um, as the motion reads, no.
motion fails with 2 yes, no.
However, I would like for us to look at it and possibly set some limits, because I do know that there are some events that already have been, planned. I do know that we did authorize, I believe that we had already approved the mural painting, and but I wasn't expecting that to be the event that it is possibly turning out to be. So let's, if somebody else is interested in authorizing smaller events and would make a motion to that effect.
Is
I
staff
will-
gonna be able to enforce that?
Pardon?
Part of the reason why I took the 500 back is because it's not, it doesn't, the governor's restrictions don't have, the permit, and staff said it would be hard to enforce that, so. I don't know.
Well, I think we could possibly try. If we set limits.
Is there a way we can find support for this ceremony that's going to be taking place to honor the streets in lieu of the Black Lives Matter painting? I hate to be redundant or play semantics, because I don't want to show favoritism, but I'm sure when a person is out there, the DDA had given a concert, which is an event, because you're playing for everybody under the sound of your instrument, that can become a concert really quick. But for a dedication, I would like to move that we could support a dedication for the Juneteenth mural with a capacity of 150 people.
Where would that be at?
May we
Folks,
get
do you want to hear some details?
Could you hold on, please? Could we get a motion to extend the meeting to 11 o'clock?
I make a motion to extend the meeting to 11 o'clock.
Support.
It's been moved and second to extend the meeting till 11. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sorry,
All right.
I interrupted your motion, Anthony. I'll support your motion if you want to say it again.
Because so the motion, if I can restate it, is in a ceremonial fashion to support the unveiling or the honor the Black Lives Matter mural with a ceremonial. I don't want to say an event. I don't want to play semantics, but I do think it should be honored in lieu of what the work they've been put in and what it's going to mean for the city being a permanent fixture, that it should be celebrated. But I would like to have a capacity of 150 people.
Support.
Would you be willing to extend that to 300?
I'll be willing to extend it to 250. Half of the 500, which is a quarter of the state's of 1,000.
Okay.
The state doesn't have a restriction.
Oh, the state doesn't have it. Oh, thank you so much.
Well, they do. There's no, is that on the non-limit now, or is that July 1st? I thought it was July 1st that all restrictions were removed.
For outside, I believe it's none current, June 1. Andrew?
And this is going to be on public property, and it's going to be where the streets are closed already. So it'll be almost to what's going on with some of the First Fridays in that area.
I believe Councilmember Wilcoxon, when you read the
Oh, my bad. You guys look very similar.
it was no restrictions on outdoor events.
Cool. I support your motion, Anthony.
Okay, it's been moved and second that, Mr. Langer, could you read it, please? I don't want to mess it up.
So move to support a dedication for the Black Lives Matter mural with no more than 250 people.
Mr. Barr,
If you do this type of thing, I'd recommend that you not limit it to the type of dedication, but limit it to any dedication of not more than 250 people.
thank you.
I'll make a friendly amendment to allow dedication ceremonies at the maximum capacity of 250 people. Do you support that, Anthony?
I do.
Cool.
Okay, any discussion on this motion?
I have a question. I do. How will this 250, how will those people be counted? Because I thought that was a discussion about the previous motion, which is why I didn't support the first one.
I believe in, I think, me personally, this is, again, in the area on Washington between Michigan Avenue and, what is that? Is that Emmett? I don't know.
That's Ferris. If you're going south, it's Ferris.
No, it's on this side where the Deja Vu is. That's
Pearl.
Pearl. So again, in those quarters, almost like if we're doing the first Fridays, that's like a corridor from two closed streets. So I think it's easier to, as opposed to in a park. I think when people are moving so freely and around, it'd be more difficult to count. But if we did have an interest in it, I guess that will put it problematic because there's no one entry point or exit point to funnel people into. So I guess counters would be necessary. So again, whether it's 237 or 251, I want to be in compliance. I don't think I gave it too much thought about how we were going to keep track of those 250. I just know it's less than 500 and it could be.
And I actually believe the mural is supposed to be on South Washington, correct? So it would be between Michigan and Ferris.
Okay, between the beer cooler and
Yes,
Burn
I,
Hope. Okay.
if I'm understanding correctly, help me, Mr. Halenga.
Yep, that's it.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. Could we require them to wear masks? I know it's not
Yes.
required, but then the number of people can still be safer. You know, if
We
the
can
group- I
require,
don't know.
yes, we can. We can make that stipulation. Yes, we can.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to follow up on my question. Only reason why I asked is that I'm in support of having the dedication event, absolutely. But just wondering again, if staff responded saying it would be hard to count, how are we going to count now that we put a number or potentially are putting a number on this particular dedication ceremony?
You're right. It's going to be hard to count. And that's kind of the issue. That's kind of why we wanted it to be more black and white and not gray, because things tend to expand. So right now I'm looking at safety, and because things do expand, putting this number on here, I know our police officers are not going to be, you know, spending their time actively counting people or to shut down an event. But I'm thinking now, since it might occur anyway, and it does with anything, let's go for safety, saying that the people out there have to have masks, and it's to protect others. And I don't know, maybe we can make sure they have sanitizer and things available. You know, the things that we were doing before. Maybe we can just say, you know, if you're gonna have this event, you have to have masks available and everyone there have to have a mask. You have to self-police. If a person doesn't have a mask, you need to have them, leave or give them a mask. I don't know. Those are just some suggestions that, I don't know. It's either that or just don't allow. I can't, because you can't count. It's gonna be very
Right.
hard.
And I think that's what I was just getting at. I was just asking the question to have it be said out loud that like we're not going to be able to count that number, to be very honest. And so figuring out what do we do to, like you said, city manager, at least ensure safety, because I do think that the dedication should happen.
Mr. Barr.
With the question of masks, I might have a hard time defending that in court if it isn't comporting with the health department requirements. We could suggest require that they follow all safety requirements of the health department. But this is a difficult situation with the counting and distancing and how many people will be there.
If the group who's actually painting and performing the tasks of putting the mural down, is it possible that they could have their group together? Or is this like the people coming, like as far as dedication, that's for the public, but as far as the people who actually gonna paint and put the thing on the ground, it's got to be a number of bodies involved in that anyway, whether we like, so it's going to be it's a very large mural, so it's going to be a number of people working on it. Is the actual mural, does that determine how many people are in, you know what I'm saying? The people who putting it down, it may not have to be, again, watched by the public, I guess, but we've already allowed them access to put the mural down, correct?
Yes.
And we don't know how many
I do
people.
know on their flyer, or I believe it was on the flyer or press release or something, I read that they were inviting anyone that wanted to help paint to come to be a part of the painting of the mural. So
I mean, it could be strategic to the point where, I guess, if we had hypothetically 200 paintbrushes and we hand those paintbrushes out to the first 200 people, that would give a limit right there. So I guess no paintbrush, it like no paintbrush. I guess we would set a limit by giving the people the tools who are going to actually work on there to keep it confined. That's an idea. Again, when I say dedication, I think people do want to see it or celebrate it once it's in. But as far as the work to put it in, I think just the number of bodies it takes to actually create it should be suffice.
well, hopefully they'll have rollers and not paintbrushes. And I say that with a big smile, knowing
Yeah,
that
me
it's,
too. I'm not
on the street, yes. So,
or if I can remove this, if it's going to be too difficult, I could just withdraw my motion if we haven't. If we can just go again. I don't even want to look at as if it's favoritism, but this is something that was already in the works, and we want it to be created and put down. So I think whatever's going to help them do their job and keep people safe, I'm all for, even if it's for removing this motion.
okay. Mr. Jones-Chance.
Yeah, is it, so we're talking about, because it sounds like a dedication, maybe if there are other events or activities attached, might be more of a moving event, like First Fridays, not in the sense that you would go from venue to venue, but that people would sort of come and go. So I wonder if is this 200, I'm guessing 250 people at one time. And then the second one was so there could be the capacity for more is what I'm getting at. But I I had a question about clarification as to why we can't have a stricter rule regarding masks than the state.
That's a question for you, Mr. Barr.
Yeah, certainly. There's nothing in the vehicle or in the state law that authorizes the city to require masks. The general process or the general situation at normal times, there are laws to prohibit masks. But the mask situation, what you're dealing with is a person's personal liberty. And there's, to my knowledge, there's no authorization in the city to require what a person wears, especially a mask. So you could try it, but I'm just saying, I don't think I could defend it in court. There are other ways to do it, however. You could have the masks available and you could recommend masks, but I would be hesitant unless the state and the health department require it, for the city to require it.
Mr. Wilcoxon, in what you read, was there a statement about mask?
Let me get back to it.
Council,
The masks were for inside for people who were vaccinated or not vaccinated. Face masks continue to be required for non-vaccinated individuals indoors. So for an outdoor gathering, from the state, there's no limit on the number of people. People who are not vaccinated cannot wear a mask at those events.
Okay, thank you. Well, council, are we ready for the vote or any more questions or discussion? Mayor Pro Tem Brown, are you satisfied with and ready to vote, or did you have more questions?
Oh, I'm satisfied. Thank you.
Okay.
Can we have this restated?
Yes, please.
this is move to allow dedication ceremonies with no more than 250 people. Are you ready for me to call the roll?
Did you have anything else, Mr. Wilcoxon?
It seems like we're letting one event influence our policy decision. And I don't see why we're doing that. I don't understand that at all. You know, if we're going to open up to large events of 250 people, then why is it just one event that is pushing this envelope? You know, if we're going to do that, then, you know, why are we saying, you know, if the issue is 250 people, then why is it a dedication event? And why isn't it just any gathering of 250 people? Because I think that sets a dangerous precedent in terms of giving preferential treatment to certain events.
I concur. And that's what I'm saying. I don't want to seem like a preferential in this.
Are you withdrawing your motion?
No, I'm not. Again, I don't want to seem arbitrary in the support for this event. And I just want to ask a question before, if I am going to withdraw the motion. I just want to ask, can the mural still be painted and put in without us making any changes to our policy?
Council, the resolution that was passed on February 16th only allowed for the mural to be painted. So the mural can still be painted. It would just not have a coinciding event going along with it.
And the execution of that painting would have to be limited by the state programs, right? If there's nothing in the city that is limiting that, then it's subject to the state programs. Because
Right.
it's not an event per se, right?
I mean, what if it, I mean, again,
It's a painting.
it's a painting. Now, what if it take 300 people to paint this? So we don't
It's
have to
st- it's
regulate it
still
at
a-
all?
I think what Mr. Wilcoxon is saying is that it's still a painting.
Well, again, in lieu of me not showing favoritism, I would like to withdraw my motion for the dedication ceremony to accompany the painting, because I want the painting to occur. I just want to stay in, I want to be consistent with the will of council to protect our citizens. So I will withdraw the motion for having 250 people at the dedication. If the painting is still going to occur, I don't think there's very little we need to do.
Mayor Pro Tem, I saw your hand up a moment ago.
Yeah, it was actually Councilmember Wilcoxon pretty much said what I was gonna say as well. I mean, if the resolution was for painting and we don't have any restrictions on how many people it takes to paint that, then I think there it is.
Okay, well, I like to withdraw my motion.
I'll support your withdrawal.
Thank you.
Okay. Now I gotta help me draw where we are. So, Mr. Halinga, where does that put us with this whole discussion? We voted down opening up for completely, correct?
So we're at the same place we were prior to the discussion. The mural is allowed, the event is not allowed. Paint the mural, but there is no coinciding event to go along with it.
Okay.
Mural was to be painted on the 5th and the 6th, and then there was a Juneteenth celebration. So the Juneteenth celebration would not go on.
So there is no, okay, so the mural will be painted before June 19th.
From what I understand, yes.
Okay. Okay. I don't know why I was thinking that it was going to be painted on the 19th. Mayor Pro Tem.
That was what I was gonna say. I guess I didn't realize that it was being painted this weekend and then the event was for 2 weeks later.
I didn't either. I thought it was all coinciding.
Okay. I need to think.
You need to what?
To think. I didn't realize that. So yeah.
So did you have some other thoughts?
Well, because I didn't see the proposal for the event per se, so I don't necessarily know everything that was involved in it, but my first thought would be, is it possible to move the painting further out to be closer to Juneteenth? But I don't want to, mess up anyone's plans, and I think the resolution may have had the dates in it, so that's I'm just mulling it over, I guess, in my brain.
The resolution for the mural did not include a date on which the mural would be painted. I believe DPS Director Ron Akers told me it was on the 5th or the 6th, or perhaps it was on the flyer that had been circulating around.
So I see Ms. Duckworth on here. Is it possible for us to talk to her, Mayor, or hear from her about this?
Yes.
Hey,
Ms. Duckworth.
Hello. Actually, Trevor had a presentation put together to kind of go over the details and logistics. And you all are correct. When we first approached, we approached for the mural, and we assumed the celebration was entangled in that because we had been speaking about that. And then we started to work with some of the city officials within that regard. So I guess that's the breakdown in communication. All I know is that we've raised close to $15,000. And if this was something that could not have happened, we could have known that before, I guess, right? Like, so I just don't know where that leaves us. But Trevor does have a presentation to kind of just talk about what the logistics are, and some of the things that we did have planned with an itinerary and everything. So. Trevor, you there?
Yes,
Yes.
can I chat with you
Yes,
all? Is that cool? Okay.
please,
Hey,
please.
all right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for having us out. Let me put my hand down. Did that work? That worked. Okay, so can I share my screen for 1 minute and then we'll just go back into quick conversations if that's possible, please.
Yes.
So just share your screen now.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so, as you all know, this is going to be the first location, Mural 1, right? South Washington from Michigan Ave to Ferris. That's what we were, trying to do on the 5th and the 6th. And let's get into the event in 1 second. We just had another question because this is another issue we I think we brought up, but maybe it wasn't officially voted in. I'm not sure. So the second mural we were hoping to do on the driveway entrance to Riverside Park, right off of Cross Street. You can kind of see it on the diagram right there. Both places where
Your screen is not sharing.
my screen is not sharing.
No.
Okay. Let me go back and try this again. All right, how are we doing now?
Your screen is sharing. Well,
Yes.
yeah, okay.
Okay, it's late. My brain's falling asleep. Let's do this, people. Look, so this is the first mural. This is the one that you all said we could do, right? South Washington from Michigan Ave to Ferris, and then this is the other one we wanted to run.
Trevor, except what you showed us was on North Washington.
North Washington, yes, we did, and that was the original. We were going to do it on North and South Washington, but City Council thought that it wasn't a good idea to do it and vetoed it on North Washington because
right, because the street is closed. Right.
Yeah, right.
So what we're looking at is actually should be south of Michigan.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Oh, you know what? Oh, you know what? I tried to make an adjustment and I didn't realize that I just had the north in there. Yeah, I'm so sorry. South. It's south, right? Yeah. And then this was going to be our second one. So this is our ask. This is our first ask for the evening is can we put the Black Lives Matter mural, on this road going into Riverside Park? We were hoping to get that approved. So, as things open up, we think it'd be a great place to host programming that people and families can go enjoy it down there. So that is the first part. I'm gonna stop sharing. Do people have any thoughts on that, or do you want to make a vote on that, or?
Any comments from council? Any questions from council?
You said one was vetoed and that's the backup place you guys wanted the first mural painted?
No, sir. When we first proposed this mural, we were going to do North and South Washington. And then City Council said that North Washington wasn't a good fit, but South Washington was. So that was the first locked space. So all our planning and the project, we're aiming to right now is on South Washington. But we did want to, put two in and just kind of spread it out across the town. And, you all suggested Depot Town, we looked at Depot Town and the streets weren't, in good enough condition to paint. And so when we walked around, we found that spot going into Riverside Park. So yes, South Washington is already locked with you all, but then the Riverside Park, that's what we came to ask about. Is that an okay place for us to put a mural?
This would be I'm sorry, Mr. Morgan, go ahead.
Again, when looking around at other cities that have these same murals, are any murals painted inside parks or most of them on streets? And if they are painted in parks, again, I think something going inside a public park is a little different than something being on the outside of it. And that would be my only contention in saying, I think, I definitely want it to be visible on the streets. I think once it comes into a park, it could have been any other park still, could have been across the basketball courts at Prospect or in Ward 1. But I do think limiting it to outside of a park would be my suggestion, but that's only my perspective.
Okay, Councilmember Jones Chance.
Yeah, I have a question. If the second painting happens, is it possible that they could both happen on Juneteenth? And the reason I'm asking is because, then the painting would happen in two different locations and would require folks to be spread out, on opposite ends of downtown.
Actually, the ideal is to go from one to the next with the manpower because of the leads, the muralist leads that are manding over the project. So that is how that will go. And with the timeline, because we've had this for a while, it would just be hard to push that back to actually painting on Juneteenth.
At this point, Brian, though, it would be spread out, right? Because we're gonna have people cut the lines, right? So just do the edge work on Washington, and as soon as that's done, then, community comes in, they kind of check in with us at a table, we assign them to a letter, so it's kind of spread out like that. And as soon as the letters are done being cut, then those people with like steady hands are gonna go over to, if you all say it's okay, to Riverside Park and start cutting those letters. And then we'll be sending people that way, as the mural finishes up. So it will be divided into two spaces. And, with all, we're hoping to get it done in, if not on the 5th and the 6th, then just on the 5th. I mean, if we can nail this on the 5th, then that'd be great, but they'll be split up.
The 5th is on a Sunday, correct?
5th is a Saturday and the 6th is a Sunday.
Okay. Okay, council, what's your pleasure?
Are we at the point where we're just talking about allowing the second mural? I'm confused.
Are we still in the discussion or dealing with the resolution?
We're still in,
The
well,
discussion?
it's kind of overlap, but discussion.
Okay. Can
We
I
have not
just, okay,
presented the
sorry.
resolution. We have not presented the resolution yet, but some of this discussion definitely deals with the resolution. Ms. Somerville.
Yeah, I guess for we've spent over an hour on this
I know.
and it's kind of embarrassing. I feel like we should just be embracing this event for Juneteenth, but at the same time, we can't just prioritize one event over the other. And at the risk of being redundant, I would like us to just reconsider our, allowing staff to book events. I'm kind of embarrassed for the people who have put so much time and energy into this. It just looks bad to not support them. So, I tried making the motion to allow events. There wasn't support, but I just want to say over an hour into this, super embarrassed that we're not embracing, community events that could go on over the summer, but in particular, we're shutting out Juneteenth. That's what, this is really doing. So that's all I have to say, for the remainder of this, I guess, agenda item. We still need to vote on the second mural, but it's just kind of embarrassing.
Mr. Wilcoxon.
Oh, I saw Mr. Jones Chance had his hand up earlier.
Oh, okay, I didn't see it. It's really hard when okay, Mr. Jones Chance.
Yeah, I mean, I would just remind us that the reason we are doing this is so that people don't get sick and die. And I'm not embarrassed about that.
You're not a public health official.
Thank you. I would move that we allow staff to convene events as normal once the state 7-day average for new cases reaches 400. Right now, looking at New York Times, we're at 612 for our 7-day average.
The state of Michigan's average is 612.
As of the 31st. Sorry, the 7-day average is 612. So once that moves to 400, which I imagine will be in a couple of weeks, if things go as they're going, then I think that would be relatively reasonable, relatively reasonable time for staff to resume events as usual.
Is there support for that motion?
I think I would have to hear that again. I'm sorry. Do we have a motion on the floor though that's open and active?
No.
Okay.
No. Okay.
Motion was move that staff is allowed to book special events when the 7-day averages of the state decrease to 400.
For context, as of the 31st, they're at 612. The 28th, they were at 910.
So the needle is moving.
That feels arbitrary. I mean, I appreciate we're trying to make these efforts. I too can't quite believe that we've been talking about just this concept in general for over an hour. And I don't know, right? None of us have a crystal ball, and nobody wants to support something that people
Okay,
are.
Councilmember Simmons, though, right now, the motion is there. We need a second before.
Sorry. Yep.
Okay. Sorry. Mr. Bauer, can I second a motion as in the mayor's seat, or do I need to turn it over to Mayor Pro Tem?
It would be customary if you do second the motion that the chair would move.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem, would you take the seat for now
Sure.
for this motion? I will second that motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there a discussion on the motion?
Mr. Wilcoxon did have his hand up. I don't know if it was for the motion or.
It was left up from before.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
So is there discussion on this current motion? All right, so
Mr. Morgan, were you making noise or?
I think he just unmuted. I don't think he was actually about to.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So if there's no discussion on the motion, then Clerk Kalinga, please call the roll on the motion.
Mayor Richardson,
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan,
Yes.
Councilmember Simmons,
Yes.
Mr. Jones Chance,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilcoxon,
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Somerville.
Yeah. Yes.
Motion carries with 6 yes and 1 no.
Okay, okay. Can I have my seat back, please?
Of course, have it.
Thank you. Mr. Wilcoxen, what was your vote?
It was no.
It was no. And Mayor Pro Tem Brown, yours, okay, I thought I heard 2 no's. Okay, fine. Thank you. I heard yours right, but I thought I heard another no also. Okay. All right, so hopefully before our next meeting, the state numbers will be down to 400 for a week. And we can move forward. City Manager, does that help you and Mr. Jacobs and other staff?
Yeah, we will just continue until the numbers move, and pretty much. I don't know if it helps with what this party wanted to do or not. But we will, of course, we'll be watching the numbers and we'll govern ourselves accordingly. Yeah, that's it.
All right, thank you. Woo, all right. Mr. Halinga, let's move on to the resolution, please.
Council Resolution number 2021-117, resolved by the Council of the City of Ypsilanti, whereas the City of Ypsilanti recognized that racism is a public health crisis affecting our entire country in June 2020, and whereas local residents have presented a plan to paint a second mural in tribute to the Black Lives Matter movement on the driveway leading into Riverside Park. Now therefore be it resolved that the Ypsilanti City Council approve proceeding with Trisha Duckworth and Trevor Stone to paint a mural to tribute to the Black Lives Matter movement on the driveway leading into Riverside Park, and have the project overseen by the Department of Public Services.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Morgan,
Yes.
Councilmember Simmons,
Yes.
Mr. Jones Chance,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilcoxen,
No.
Pro Tem Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Somerville,
Yes.
Mayor Richardson.
Yes,
Motion carries with 6 yes and 1 no.
thank you.
Council, the next resolution, resolution number 2021-118, whereas the city has an existing contract with Passport Parking that provides for permit administration and online ticket payment. Whereas these amendments to the existing contract would lower the pre-permit cost to the city as well as the fees associated with paying certain tickets online. Now therefore be it resolved that the Ypsilanti City Council approve the attached amendments to the existing contract and authorizes the city manager to sign it.
Is there a motion and support?
So move.
Support.
I see, Ms. Westler, you have something to tell us?
I don't have anything in addition to the memo. I just wanted to be available for any questions.
All right, thank you. Is there any questions for Ms. Westler? Any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, Mr. Halinga, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Wilcoxen,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Somerville,
Yes.
Mayor Richardson,
Yes,
Councilmember Morgan,
Yes.
Councilmember Simmons,
Yes.
Mr. Jones Chance.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
great, thank you.
Council, moving on to the next resolution, Resolution 2021-119, resolved by the Council of the City of Ypsilanti, whereas the state of Michigan adopted the Small Wireless Communication Facilities Deployment Act in late 2018, which requires municipalities to allow small cell wireless facilities within public right of way. And whereas the City of Ypsilanti adopted an ordinance to regulate small cell wireless facilities within the constraints of this law. And whereas Verizon Wireless has submitted an application. And whereas city staff has reviewed the plans and application and has found that the plans are consistent with the requirements of city ordinances. Now therefore be it resolved that the City of Ypsilanti approves small cell wireless application 2021-002, subject to review by the city attorney.
Move.
There's a motion, there's a
Support.
second. Been moved and supported. Questions, comments, discussion? Seeing none, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Somerville,
Yes.
Mayor Richardson,
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan,
Yes.
Councilmember Simmons,
Yes.
Mr. Jones Chance,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilcoxen.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Council, moving on to the next item, Resolution 2021-120, resolved by the Council of the City of Ypsilanti, whereas it is necessary to provide our general foreman a vehicle in order for them to fulfill their responsibilities, and whereas the City Council of the City of Ypsilanti has allocated the funds in the fiscal year 2020-2021 budget for this vehicle replacement, and whereas the regular scheduled replacement of city vehicles saves funds, promotes employee safety, and ensures reliability in providing public services. Now therefore be it resolved that the City Council authorizes the purchase of a replacement pickup truck from Todd Wenzel Buick GMC for a purchase price of $33,935, with any change orders to be approved by the city manager.
I'll move.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Questions, discussion, comments? Mr. Akers, you have something for us.
Thank you, Mayor. The only thing that I will add to what was in my summary is we did actually take a look at the F-150 Lightning that came out recently. It was on the news about an electric pickup truck. That pickup truck is not projected to be, they're going to be taking orders later this year. It's not going to be delivered until spring of 2022. The exciting news is that looking at the price point, the MSRPs that Ford put out for some of the commercial ends of the trucks, it looks like the price is going to be low enough where it makes financial sense to maybe do that at a later date. But the point that I wanted to make was that we did take a look and they're not going to be deliverable till next year.
And we needed our truck now.
It's scheduled for this budget year and as a replacement.
Okay. Well, the budget we're on is 21-22. I'm just throwing things out there. But I saw that truck, it looked nice, so, okay. Any other questions or comments, discussion? Okay, Mr. Lango, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Somerville,
Yes.
Mayor Richardson,
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan,
Yes.
Councilmember Simmons,
Yes.
Mr. Jones Chance,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilcoxen,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
All right, thank you. And thank you, Mr. Akers.
So moving on to the next item is Board and Commission nominations. There was one nomination for the Downtown Development Authority, a non-resident, Brandon Dent. He is a downtown business owner. And then the section following that is board and commission reports, with the first report coming from the Police Advisory Commission.
Any report, Mr. Morgan? Okay, let's go on to the next one, please.
I'm sorry, you can come back to me.
The Human Relations Commission is next.
No report for tonight. We will be speaking in June.
I couldn't hear you.
I said no report tonight. We'll be meeting in June.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Next is Arts Commission.
Nothing to report.
I'll just list the next two since they're both Councilmember Wilcoxen, Parks and Rec and Sustainability.
You're muted, Mr. Wilcoxen.
Sorry about that. They have not met this month since the last time we talked, so I don't have anything to report.
Thank you.
Next is
That's for both of them. That's for Parks and Recs and Sustain. Okay, thank you.
Next commission is HDC.
Nothing to report.
Next is Planning Commission.
Nothing to report. The last meeting was very short.
And finally, the Zoning Board of Appeals.
The last meeting was scheduled for the 26th, and I don't believe they met because I didn't receive an invitation. The next one is July 28th.
That particular board doesn't meet regularly, correct? They only meet when they have something coming up, Mr. Halinga.
That's correct. They have a normal schedule, but we'll cancel the meeting if one isn't needed.
All right, thank you.
Next on the agenda is liaison reports. First up is SEMCOG.
Nothing from SIMCOG tonight, please. Thank you.
Next is Washtenaw Area Transportation Study.
Nothing too big. We got $160,000 TAP funds. And I don't know, I guess that's big news, but other than that, nothing too exciting.
How much of that is that are we able to tap into?
I'm going to ask Mr. Akers or Ms. Wessler to comment because that was about a specific project, I believe. Was it not? Are they still here? Sorry, I don't have my notes on the specifics handy.
Yes, that was specifically for the Hamilton Huron land reduction project coming up next
Okay.
year.
All right, thank you.
Next is Urban County.
We've got a meeting coming up.
Next is YDDA.
Good evening, Council. DDA had its first summer movie last Thursday. We had about 50 cars show up, and chips and salsa were distributed for free from Maze. We watched Black Panther. It was a lot of fun. We don't have a meeting for a couple weeks, but we'll be talking about cafe lighting projects in downtown. And we recently completed one in the Depot Town Freight House Plaza. So look for that as you're headed about.
And when's the next movie?
Next movie is the last Thursday of the month. That's another drive-in. It'll be the Independent Film Festival of Ypsilanti on June 24th.
Okay, and that's at, is that the one up by the water tower?
This will be at the South Huron parking lot this time.
Okay, thank you. Just so it goes in the record.
Okay, the next item is Friends of the Rutherford Pool.
Haven't had a meeting recently. They opened the pool for limited hours over this past weekend. And then full hours will be June 14th, I think is when they start.
And next on the agenda is council proposed business.
Okay, let's start up top on my screen. Mr. Wilcoxen.
Nothing at this time.
Thank you. Ms. Simmons.
Nothing at this time.
Thank you.
Actually,
Ms.
can I just,
Summerville.
sorry, can I just say one thing?
Yes.
I just wanted to say thanks. Mr. Akers has followed up on a couple things, and I just want to say thanks again. He's doing a great job, and I just really appreciate his follow through.
Thank you. And I will second that, Mr. Akers. So, Ms. Summerville.
The only thing to report is I'm trying to pull together a board for the Friends of Prospect Park. Mr. Barr contacted me last week and has encouraged, kind of prompted me to do some research on who is involved in that. And he's been helpful in connecting me with folks that he's talked to. So I'm working on that to reestablish the board that Pete Murdoch was heavily, the lead of for the annual cleanup and other things there. So that's all I have. If you know anybody who you think might be good to be approached on that, please let me know.
Okay, I might be able to help you find the names of the people that were involved in that association. And I'm glad to hear that, because that is one of the things that I'm hoping that we can do, is to revive some of the neighborhood associations that we had going before. So, all right, thank
Right,
you.
thanks.
Mayor Pro Tem,
Nothing tonight.
thank you. Mr. Jones Chance.
Yeah, I just want to thank all the folks who came out and helped with the Park Ridge cleanup the other week. If that didn't happen last week, last meeting. So other than that, nothing else from me.
All right, thank you. Mr. Morgan.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't know if I'm hearing gunshots or if I'm hearing fireworks outside the house.
I was wondering the same
It's
thing.
fireworks.
Okay.
Well, I'm okay. I'm just hearing something. You three are in a close proximity. I was
Yeah.
hearing something myself and was wondering if it was gunshots and fireworks, but I think it was fireworks. So
Yes.
Well,
Anthony and I share a front yard, well, same neighborhood.
right. And Mr. Jones Chance is not far from you all, right, Mr. Chance?
I'm on the other side of the park, but it might be something
Okay,
else.
Could
I just
be.
want to backtrack a little bit. I missed my liaison, my commission. I just want to again, I want to thank everybody that participates for the YPAC commission. And there's some changes that have been made. I know that the chair, Heather Berkowitz, had resigned due to I believe living situations. And so now we have a vice chair in Gail, and I know we're gonna have to they're gonna have to find another person to take the helm. But it just changed from Andy Fanta, who was at least a year over that. So the direction of is still within with the scope of power that they have, but how it's going to be conducted is again needing more people to put some more energy and time in. But the next meeting is June 27th, but a couple of things they were mentioning were still attempting to get some to be highlighted on the city's website. We're talking about different type of gunshots and different things, and there was some discussion about, again, how the agenda was going to be steered and how probably it used to be versus some of the new things that are happening now, and they're still finding their bearings with a new group or the same group, but just a reconfiguration of the leadership. So that's important. And I just as a second note, I just want to say that just to make a public record, this is to all the citizens in Ypsilanti that support the will of council. It's not an easy job, but I can't lie. I do feel a certain way when I'm being bombarded and potentially bullied and insulted and degraded because I didn't support a certain position. And I just want to be clear, it's a public record. I want to make sure people know that I'm voting my conscience. I'm voting the way that I feel I should, based on the information that I'm being given. And so again, it's not. I think it's us for Ypsilanti. I just don't get pats on the back when you support a certain person's issue, but then you get kind of kicked under the bus when you don't. And I'm just saying this is very difficult work. There's no exact science, and I'm excited to be doing some of this work. So thank you for that, Mayor.
All right, thank you very much. Question on YPAC though. I attended the first hour or so of the meeting, and I thought they did they not elect a vice chair?
I think
Council
if
Dale
it's
Wolkoff was elected as chair of the commission. They tabled electing a vice chair until once Heather Berkowitz's seat is filled.
Oh, okay. All right. That was it. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay. Anything else, Mr. Morgan?
Nope. I'm just glad to be here with you guys. Thank you.
Okay. All right. For communication from the mayor, the county published a few weeks ago the opportunity index, and I would just like to ask that council has a presentation on that. I've looked at it and need to look at it some more, but I think it would be good for it to be presented. I mean, a presentation on it at council meetings so that our residents that do tune into our meeting would be able to hear. And it's full of a lot of information. Okay. And in light of hopefully the development coming on Water Street, I would just like to ask that staff and council begin to, if possible, since we are able to get out and about again, to just stop in and say hello and encourage our businesses. We're going to need all the support that we can get as if we go forward with our development, and just building some goodwill throughout the city is not going to hurt. We're in a place where as we go forward, we're going to need the support of our citizens, our businesses, and not just to get their support, but they need to know that we too are supporting them. A quick stop in, a quick, hello, and move on. I think would be good, or even pick up the phone and a quick call. So I'm asking that if staff and council would help me with that. Thank you. The other thing is, it's not going to be a whole lot longer before the funds come in from the rescue plan. And I believe I heard from council as I've talked with each one individually that we would like to hear from our citizens on how to spend that money, that it should just not be up to us to make decisions. We still have a lot of people that are hurting within the city. And I would like to hear, and it is a rescue plan money for, and one of the, as from the meeting where they announced it that I attend, that came out straight out of Washington, there was to be a focus on residents. So I would just like to, for staff to start planning a meeting where we can hear from our residents for ideas and suggestions, and maybe we might even need more than one, but to discuss that money and how we could best help our residents, how we could best help our businesses, and how we could best help the city. So that's it for me for tonight. Thank you.
Next item is communications from the city manager.
Okay, I'll make this quick. I just want to, I love development and Water Street is moving right along. But in the next couple of weeks, we're gonna start looking at the development on 220 North Park. We're gonna sponsor some public engagement sessions. So stay tuned because we'd like council to be a part of those. And it's an exciting time. There's some single family residences being proposed. And we're gonna have to really get out there and talk with the residents, especially of Ward 3, so that we could move forward. We want to make this good for the entire community over there. And so we want council to be a part of the public engagement as much as possible. That's it.
Thank you. And city manager, if I remember correctly from some of the short talks that we've had about that with, maybe not with you, but Mr. Myers, at least, some of that housing that is being planned for there will be affordable.
Yes.
Am I correct? Yes. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay.
Council, the next item is adjournment.
I declare this meeting adjourned. Everyone stay